This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we are so grateful to have Angalia Bianca with us on WZRD via Zoom. And she is the author of In Deep, How I Survived Gangs, Heroin, and Prison to Become a Chicago Violence Interrupter. Hi, Bianca.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We were reading a couple of excerpts from your wonderful book. It's so moving. And once I started reading it, just couldn't put it down. I think I finished reading it in 2 sittings. So it's just so moving. How did you decide to write your book, In Deep, How I Survived Gangs, Heroin, and Prison to Become a Chicago Violence Interrupter?
Well, it's okay. So when I was younger and in that life of drugs and crime and all that stuff, I probably seem delusional by saying this, but I would always say, one day I'm going to write a book. One day I'm going to write a book. And I always said that, and even would kind of become a little comical in prison. Like the girls would go, hey, Bianca, what are you going to do when you get older? And I was like, oh, I don't have to worry. I'm going to write a book, So I really didn't know how I was going to do that. I'm not really a writer. And, but anyway, I continued to say this for like 30 years. And it was about, I think, 2015 or 16 that I was at a writing workshop with the famed Pamela DeBar, author of I'm with the Band, and I met Linda Beckstrom, and she's the brilliant writer, actually. So my co-author, and we met and somehow clicked immediately, right? And then somehow, so then we went to the Grammys together, and we spent a week there. So during this week, I had just only known her like a few months, right? And I kept just in conversation talking to her, about my life, or she was like all intrigued. And she kept saying like, oh my God, this makes no sense that you're even can talk or alive or whatever. And so then I said, hey, Linda, do you want to help me write my book? And the rest is history. So it took us about 14 months. And I had journals and things that I had written over the years, after I changed my life around. And by the way, on May 8th, I will be sober and productive and law-abiding for 12 years. So I'm really proud of that. But Linda is such a, the flow of the book where you are not able to put it down. She's really great at that. And we remain very like families till today. So that's kind of how that started. It took us, like I said, 14 months. And, it was a lot of back and forth and her, recording me. I like to joke because during this process, she, I was like, you have to really understand my life, in order to help me write this, right? And so we would go, as I call them, hood tours, and so her and I would get in my car and I would drive through all the marginalized communities, and everyone knew me from my past and knew I changed, and people, she was like really impressed, like that, like young guys, older guys would be like, Bianca, 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 and I was like, don't be scared, you're going to be fine. And she was like, no. And she was never afraid. And I was like taking her all through all these different communities, like this is where I OD'd, this is where I got shot. This is where whatever happened, and I introduced her to a lot of the guys. And so that was part of the research of it, so she could really understand. And I remember Linda Beckstrom saying, I will never look at Chicago the same. Like she really got to see the nitty gritty of really a lot of people don't understand. So that was the process. And then we were published by Carmine Appice, the legendary drummer, who is a friend of mine, Vanilla Fudge and Rod Stewart. It's very hard to get published, and I did not want to. Neither of us wanted to self-publish, and but you have to be invited, right, to a publisher. So I called Carmine Appice and said, hey, you just published a book with this publisher. Can you make an intro? Would you be willing to read the manuscript? And he agreed while he was on tour in Belgium, and he kept sending, he was reading the manuscript and kept WhatsApping me, you know, from Belgium and saying like, oh my God, you don't learn, like every chapter, you know. And then he made the connection with Yuval Taylor, the senior editor at that time of Chicago Review Press, who then, you know, agreed like, yeah, let's publish this book. So that's how that worked out. But I always knew since I was like 19, I always knew that I was one day going to have a book of my life.
We also want to welcome Bill Morton, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. You and Bill were actually working together for a time while you were writing the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, Bill. And Bill is a wonderful man. And I have had a lot of interactions with him. He, you know, during the time, like some years ago, I haven't seen him for a while, but, you know, he had an office like a block from my apartment, and, you know, things would happen, you know, like violence or something, or he would tell me, you know, this is going on. And I would try to like, you know, intervene with who I may have, you know, thought may have, you know, like have a conflict to try to settle it. And Bill helps, he's such technical brilliance, you know, but anyway, so yeah, he helped me a lot. And with like technical things and computer stuff. And yeah, you know, I respect the man highly.
Bill, if you
Well,
don't,
thank you so much,
go ahead.
Bianca, and it's wonderful to be here. I remember back in the day, like the Quest days, of course, and then when we had the chamber office, the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce office on Sheridan, you used to stop by, and it's always a pleasure to see you around. And I remember at that time, your book was just about to be released, and you were so excited. And so I'm so very happy for you and all of your success and all of your touring and everything you're doing. It's really amazing, and it's doing a lot of people a lot of good.
Yeah, it's about the message for me. Authors don't get rich, and my attitude is like, hey, as long as I can pay my bills, I've been broke all my life, you know, so my adult life. So it's really the message, and I know the book is brutally honest, and I had to tell that story in the mindset that I had back then. In order for people to kind of understand it. I couldn't, like, don't think that I don't think back and go like, oh my God, when I did this or that, like how horrible, right? Of course I think that way now, but I told the story in a way of the mindset that I had at that time. And I'm not proud of a lot of the things, the majority of the things I've done, but I am no longer that person. So I say, I no longer think the way I once thought, so I no longer behave the way I once behaved. And I know it's helped people because people reach out for me from all over the country, here in Chicago, around the world, you know, saying different things, whether it helped their child with a drug addiction or, you know, hey, I found a gun in my kid's drawer. I mean, like just a lot of stuff. So I know I've gotten a lot of feedback, and that was my goal. My goal was not, you know, for anything else, but to give hope to people that no matter how bad you sink into hell by your own choices, you can come from underneath that.
I remember back at the old office, we would talk about violence interruption. And you'd tell me some stories. You wouldn't tell me the names of the people or anything ever. And I wouldn't even get involved in any of that. But you would tell me some stories about, you know, some things you were trying to accomplish with violent interruption, and some of the ways you do it, and some of the situations. You know, I would almost say that this book is a form of violence interruption with your experiences.
Mm-hmm. I found it, someone had told me, someone at the University of Illinois, you know, like I've been there a long time. So, you know, I know a lot of different department people, and I ran into some man, and he said, my daughter goes to, I forget the Catholic high school, all girls Catholic high school, but it's real prominent. I believe it's in Beverly or on the South Side. I forget the name of it, but he said to me, my daughter came home with your book and was like, hey, she works at UIC. Do you know her? And then he was like, oh yeah, and I said, wait, what? At a where did she get it? And he said, it's the all girls Catholic high school put it on the, like top books to read, right, for the students. And I actually was horrified by that. I can't even imagine the mother superior would have to, like, she'd have to read that, to say, to approve it, right? And I thought, oh my God, because I'm so brutally honest, and I was like kind of horrified. And then I said, oh my God, did I traumatize your daughter, And he was like, you know what, they learn that stuff anyway. So it's better for them to see the ugly side up front, And I was like, yeah, I guess, that's true. I learned a lot of stuff when I was in high school. So, yeah.
When Linda worked with you, did she interview you? How did she get into all that detail? Did she have tapes of you talking with her and then derive it from that? Because the detail is so amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, she did record me. We would meet a couple times a week. I always said we were like joined at the hip for 14 months, and she'd write, a chapter or however many pages, and email to me. I'd print them out, mark them up, like, because, sometimes in recording things get lost, a little word or two or something. And I'd mark it up. We'd meet, she'd make the changes back, it was back and forth, a lot of emailing, but we spent a lot of time together. I'd go to her house. And like I said, we'd go into the communities. And so, yeah, there was a lot of, like, the research was based on, recording me. And even when we would be in the communities driving around, she was recording that, like me saying, well, here's where, I used to do this, or I used to sell drugs here, or I used to prostitute here, or whatever, So, yeah, it was a lot of work. But, Linda Beckstrom told me that early on that she was, because it's a lot of work, let's face it, it's a lot of work to write a book. And I could never have did that by myself. And so Linda said early on that she jumped so into the project because she believed in my story, and she believed that it needed to be told, and that, it was very important, right? So, and I'm grateful to her for that.
And your memory is amazing because so much happened to you, and you wove in and out of so many people's lives. And how were you able to remember all of that? So and keep the detail.
Yes. So thankfully, and I know I did a lot of drugs, and a lot of people, you hear them say, I don't remember, it's a blur, I was on drugs, but somehow, well, I have a photographic memory, like legitimately, I have a photographic memory. So it was very easy for me to remember details, because as I would be telling her stories, I'm like reliving them in my head, watching it, and through the grace of God, I don't know. I mean, like, I joke around and say, I guess that because, drugs destroy brain cells, right? And I'm always like, well, I don't know. I guess somehow I got blessed where the brain cells that were destroyed were probably the brain cells that we don't use. I don't know. But I am really grateful that my memory, is very well intact. So.
Mm-hmm. And you developed so many deep friendships with people in all different walks of life. Would you give us some insight? What about you was able to just become friends with almost everybody that you met?
Yeah, so I love people, and all people, right? And I've always been like that. Even as a child, I was very outgoing, and I kind of like, I can, like on one level, young people at risk, youth, whatever. I somehow have a natural ability to form a quick relationship because, like when you're working in communities and with this type of population, people, like they could tell if you're sincere or not, and I truly am sincere. So it's not like, and even if it's a stranger, 10 minutes later, we're like BFFs, and Facebook friends and changing phone numbers. And, so I, in all walks of life, I do that, whether it's, legislators, city, state, federal, music people, the random lady on the corner, it doesn't really matter. I have a heart to help people. And I believe, I joke around and say, like, I was like a 5-year-old civil rights activist. And looking back, like my grandmother having to yell at me, taking me to the store and telling me, okay, now be quiet, don't start yelling at anybody, And so I just have that ability, and I'm just really outgoing, and I'm not shy, and I want to know everybody. I want to help everybody. I want everyone to know that, regardless of what's going on in their life, that they can change. I want every legislator to know my backstory and lived experience, and maybe they can make more, better, judgments on bills for policy change, and like this just goes on and on. So I just have a natural ability. I think I got it from my grandmother. My grandmother was from Sicily, and she was very, very, when I, before I was born, when my family lived in Little Italy, my grandmother would literally hold the coffee, the old fashioned Corningware coffee pot out the window and say in Italian, cafe, cafe, and all the ladies in the community, not the community, but like in that block, would all come to her house, and basically Little Italy was made up of, and even when I lived there as a child, basically Italians, Hispanic, and African-American. And so it was always like real, my grandma loved people as well, so I think I get that from her.
Yes. Well, thanks for answering that, because that was my next question. Who do you get it from? And
Yeah.
Little Italy, by the way, is just south of Chinatown, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think over the years, a lot of things got moved, a few blocks, with but I know my grandparents initially lived on Coven Street, and then that got like taken down because of the building of the Dan Ryan, and everyone had to sell Eminent Domain. Then my family moved on the other side of Little Italy by closer to like Polk and Oakley. And then again, later in years, by the time I was probably like 8, they had to move again, because then the medical district and UIC was being built, or expanded, So then we moved to Oak Park, because everyone had to move. So, but anyway, and so I did graduate 8th grade from Emerson Grade School in Oak Park, and I did begin to go to Oak Park River Forest High School, but I was already way out of control by then, and I dropped out.
Just a little question about what you just said. The Eminent Domain, where they destroyed your home. Did that negatively impact your life, or did that have a big impact at all?
I don't think on mine, because I probably didn't know at that time what was going on or why we moved. I know better now, obviously, but I'm sure it was real bittersweet for my family, because they had lived there since they came here from Sicily, and that whole sense of community. And I have a lot of fond memories as a child living there. And till this day, every now and then I drive down Polk Street and park, right there, like a block past Oakley, or like kind of almost by Levitt. And it's a parking lot where I used to live, but I just sit there, I park, and I just look at it's a parking lot, but in my mind, I can imagine the building. And I'm remembering, like on a summer night, all the ladies, all the families sitting on the sidewalk on chairs and gossiping and eating, food, and, and the kids playing. And, when I was very young, when I lived there, I went to St. Callistus Catholic school. And I remember my grandmother, and I know you're probably going to ask me this, but I just want to throw this out here, that when I was very little, my grandmother, she was such a good baker and Italian cook, right? And so she used to make Italian cookies. And on Sundays, she would take me by my little hand and with her bag of cookies, and we'd walk to the convent, and we'd go in the convent so she can give the nuns cookies. And I don't know, I guess I got inspired or something by the nuns. I don't know. But when I remember coming out one day and saying to my grandmother, and I was probably in first grade, and I said, Grandma, when I grow up, I'm going to make a difference and I'm going to be somebody, Grandma. And she was just like, okay, honey, whatever. And then like when you get to the question about my dad, that was something also going through my head, you know, like, oh yeah, you really became something. You really made a difference. So I have fond memories of Little Italy.
What are the most common stereotypes that people have of you, and how do you address those stereotypes?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people stereotype me. However, there are times that, you know, because I've traveled extensively doing violence prevention work and trainings and stuff like that. And every once in a while, someone may look at me. Well, I can tell you in schools, for example, this is a kind of stereotype where Chicago schools, high schools will call, like a principal or something will call me and say, hey, can you come and talk at, you know, this school about to this class or whatever, or in the auditorium, you know, like these are schools that like a lot of stuff is happening or going on, or kids are starting to become, you know, lost or at risk. Anyway, and I remember several times going into a high school and like the kids are starting to sit down and I'll see like 5 girls. Like this one time I saw like 5 girls sitting there kind of like, you know, whispering. And I knew they were probably thinking like, what does this older white lady have to say that would we even care about, right? So they never saw me or met me or nothing about me. And so I walked over to them and I introduced myself and they were like, kind of like, hi, you know, and I was like, okay, look, so I'm real honest. Let's see if you're going to be honest. So right now you're thinking that there's absolutely nothing that you're going to be able to relate with me about, right? Aren't you? You're kind of judging me. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so can we make a non-money bet that when we're done with this presentation, that you're going to be like, what? You know? And they were like, okay. So at the end of it, those 5 girls and they were like, oh, let's take selfies and I want a picture and what's your, let me follow you on Instagram, or, you know, like we were like, and we stay in touch till this day, you know? So, yeah. So with that, I just kind of go, when I know, I can identify pretty quickly if somebody's going to look at me and say like, you know, I don't know, how could she possibly know what goes on in marginalized communities, right? And I know how to handle that in a nice professional way. I don't get offended at all because I probably would do the same thing. So, and then in other arenas, I basically, like with young people, say, I used to be you. You know, let me tell you the ugly side up front, so you won't be as shocked as me when they slam the cell door, you know, and even sometimes with, you know, like, you know, every now and then if I testify for legislation, you know, like you'll get that one person and be like, well, wait, are you an expert in this, you know, and that's, you know, kind of, you know, it's normal, you know, like, no, legit, no, I'm not an expert in this, but I have a lot of lived experience. So yeah, I don't run into it too often though. I can't say that people, you know, do that to me. I mean, I don't know why, but just now and then.
I guess maybe it's on account of your being so personable. Once people start talking with you and spending a little time with you, they see a whole different side.
Yeah. I think, you know, I think that people, and I'm not just talking about at-risk youth, I mean, just general people, mainstream society, after a couple sentences, a person can tell kind of, for the majority of people, right, can be like, oh, wow, this girl's for real, you know? And I mean, I truly will never stop helping people. And it's not just violence, you know, I mean, it's all types of, I get calls, I mean, we'd be on here for 3 hours if I told you some of the crazy things, you know, and, but I go to bat and I try to help people, you know. A lady, I'll just tell you one quick one. I got an inbox from some woman from Omaha, Nebraska, and I don't even know how she found me, but she said, she clearly was an elderly lady. And she said she had 2 cats and she heard that I help people. And, she was going into a nursing home and she didn't want her 2 cats, she couldn't take the cats, and she didn't want her 2 cats to be killed, in a shelter or something. So she was asking for my help and had heard that I help people. So anyway, so I thought, okay, maybe she's not real computer savvy. So I literally called shelters throughout Omaha and the surrounding areas and found a no-kill shelter, and then ended up finding someone to adopt the 2 cats and then send her the phone number to call, and then that all worked out. So that's just like one random thing. But so not that but I mean, it's if I can help, I'll help, like I was driving just last week, and I actually was at the red light on Tui right at Sheridan, and there was a man trying to wheel himself, across in a wheelchair manually. And the way the street is and the curb goes up, he was struggling, and the light was going to turn green. And people, they kind of drivers these days, right? And I thought, oh my God, like, are people heartless, right? So I took my car and like moved it a little bit. I was going to be turning left. I was going east, about to turn left. And I turned my car and put it in front of the drivers that were going to turn right. And I jumped out of my car and I pushed him all the way across. And then people were beeping and probably screaming at me, but I didn't care. I pushed the man across and up the ramp and onto the sidewalk. And then he said, thank you. And that was the end of it. And another car going the other way stopped and said, hey, thanks. I would have did the same thing. So it's not like, I'm not saying all this because it's like, oh, I'm Mother Teresa. I'm just I try to say these things so people can know one small act of kindness can be a ripple effect to let someone know that they care, or, where everyone's suffering in some kind of way. So.
You wrote very touchingly about how the passing of your father affected you, and at that time you were, of course, very distressed. But after so much time has passed, did you ever feel that you got a sign from your father that indicated that he knows what you are doing now?
Yes, actually, yes. So I'm kind of like an empath. I feel like especially in situations of violence, when I'm with mothers crying over a casket or something bad happens, I'm not saying I'm magical or anything like that, but I feel the pain. I feel it worse than just like, this is horrible, I feel bad. I can feel that, right? So my father, now I was not the closest to my father because he was like not there a lot, but he loved me and my sister very much, and we loved him too. And no matter how crazy that whole, but when he died, like, you would have thought I would have did that change. When my grandmother died, I was in prison also. And I was like, I couldn't even get out of my bed for like a month. And the warden thankfully was like, just leave her alone. She doesn't have to go to her assignment. She's taken this really hard. And, but when my father died, I say now, in my father's death, he gave me life. And that did start the ball rolling of me to think, because I started thinking one by one, my family is dying. I haven't seen my children in 17 years. And like, what are you doing? And you're getting older too. Time's not freezing, until you decide to kick back into gear, right? So that's, and I always say one sentence can change someone's life. And the counselor, by her saying, when I was more crying out of guilt, actually, when I was told he died. And when she took my hand and said, Bianca, I want you to take comfort that your father died peacefully and with his loved ones around. And I knew I wouldn't be afforded that privilege. So then I made a deal with God and in my cell and said, God, if you take the taste of the streets and the heroin from my mouth until my last dying breath, I'll help people. And that kind of made me think, well, you made the deal, you got to kind of try, and I couldn't even imagine an hour without heroin, being not in jail and or the streets. And I got out and I went to ACP Foundation, and I credit them for, teaching me how to stay sober, learning, responsibility, accountability. I lived there for 8 months and I got my job. And I also credit J.W. Hughes was the then program manager of CeaseFire. And in my effort to keep my promise to God while I was at Safe Haven, they would say like, hey, here's a pass, you're going to go to the community center or whatever. And I would be on the bus and I would see, like a crowd of guys on the corner or whatever. And I'd literally get off the bus and go, I wouldn't even know them. And I would start talking to them. And at first they'd probably look at me like, what's going on? Who is this? And why is she talking to us? But within a couple minutes, it was kind of, maybe they thought it was entertaining. I don't know, but it's basically me saying, hey, look, I'm not the police. I don't work with the police. I used to be you. And I want to tell you the ugly side, and in a light, jokingly way, kind of to, get in. And J.W. Hughes saw me several times over a month, period of like, wow, who is that woman? And so finally one day he stopped him, and he had another worker with him. He was the program manager, but he stopped and they got out of the car. They got out of the car, and all the guys on the corner were all like, hey, J-Dub, they all knew him, right? And then I'm standing there, and then JW was like, sister, can I holler at you? Can I talk to you? And I said, sure. And he goes, walk with me. So we walked, a little bit away. And he was like, I don't mean any harm in this at all. I don't even know how to say this, because I don't think this way, but I have never in my life seen an older white woman in the hood talking with at-risk people, and I said, he's like, do you know them? And I said, well, I didn't, now I do. And he's like, do you know they're affiliated, and I said, yeah. And then he's like, do you know they probably have a gun or nearby or something? And I'm like, yeah, probably. And he's like, and what are you saying to them? And I told him, I said, I'm just trying to like talk to them of the ugly side, where this ends, like we're all high on the hog in the beginning, but where does this end? And he said, he goes, well, how do you know this? And I go, because I used to be them. And then he offered me a job, and the rest was history. So JW always says, Bianca, you're always giving me flowers above the grave, but you got to give credit to those who helped. And I never forget where I come from. So
if you had met yourself when you were still on the streets, what would you have said to yourself do you think, that could have helped make you change?
Yeah, I mean, I said a lot. And honestly, I would have said a whole lot, but I don't think my younger self would have listened to me. I was extremely out of control. And I really thought I knew everything, like that's why I dropped out of high school. Like, what more could anybody teach me? I'm the smartest person on the planet. So I started getting high at 9 years old. And you could pick that apart and say, because I was actually raped by a male babysitter when I was 4 years old. I did tell my mother. I wasn't one of those kids that was scared. I mean, at the time, yeah, I was 4. I do have a vivid memory of that, and it was very traumatizing. And this entire time that, the babysitter, and kept saying, don't tell your mother, this, that, the other. But as soon as my mom came home, I told her. And then my mother leaving because of marital problems when I was 5, that's childhood trauma. And then, so me starting to get a little bit out of control, and being raised by a grandmother who spoiled me. I was the love of her life in her mind. And I could get away with anything. So back in 1963, 64, that was not talked about. Like, maybe we should get her into counseling. We barely talk about that now, right? And so I think the choice, well, I don't even like to say, they say like there's a lot of the naysayers about addiction that say, well, you chose to get high, and it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I was 9 years old. Could your daughter at 9 years old choose to tell you, I'm not going to come home for a week and I'm not telling you where I'm going, but I'll be back in a week? No, of course not. Can your daughter tell you, how to pay your bills? No, because we can't make an educational, responsible decision at that age. So I do not blame my family at all, because from a very young age, I knew how spoiled I was, and I just had that kind of a personality. And my sister turned out fine, So, but I just don't think that I would have listened. I mean, sadly, I don't know if I could go back in time and change policy that it's okay to go to counseling, you know, but especially a Sicilian family, that's like, oh my God, don't talk about the neighbors. They'll think we have a crazy kid in the house, you know? So yeah, I don't even know how to answer that question because I literally was that out of control. I don't think I would have listened to anyone.
Are you able to draw a parallel between how you struggle with addiction and crime and how the people who are marginalized and impoverished also struggle?
Yes.
You learned how to talk people out of violence. Are you able to help your friends improve their lives and the lives of their families too, as you're working with them?
Yes, absolutely. So when I work with an individual, you know, possibly, you know, involved or going the route of, you know, violence and that whole street life, you know, I will bond that relationship with that person or those people. And then, you know, like, and hey, you can't save everybody, because I get this question, like I travel and, you know, just public speaking. And when they hear I'm from Chicago, it's always like, well, hey, how's that going? How's that working out for you in Chicago? You know? And so people really don't understand the demographics of how this works with organizations and funding. And, you know, like no one has funding to, you know, saturate all of these marginalized communities where violence likely occurs, right? But with me, once, you know, and I formed strong bonds, like, you know, even now, all these years later, guys and females that were my participants in 2011, 2012, they still call me, you know, and are like, hey, this is happening. So once I formed that bond with the individual and try to, you know, kind of do my best. Like I said, I don't win every one, but, you know, I lose a lot, but I know I've helped a lot. And then I want to know about their family and their children. What can I do to help help that? What are the root causes, right? So it could be, you know, that, you know, like a lot of them might have 2 babies or, you know, whatever. And then I usually end up meeting the mothers and family, and they're all throughout Chicago, not just the north side, all throughout Chicago, you know, north, south, west, east. And you know, I want to provide resources. So if I find out things that they need, or the children don't have coats, I do like, it's like I do a lot of stuff in the dark when nobody's watching, because I really don't care about accolades, not for real, you know. And I know people ask me this in interviews, and I'm honest about it. But I just want your listeners to know I really don't care. I'm not trying to get an award. I don't have to let everybody know stuff. But all year round, I help shelters with children. As far as north side, west side, you know, Good News Partners, the shelter on Paulina, as far as like giving them clothing. And I have a lot of people, because I'm like, I have a reputation of being like, really, like, I'm real honest, right? So like, no, everyone knows that they could say, here's this much money, or even like Bed Bath & Beyond has donated to me brand new, you know, like blankets and stuff. I'm not going to keep any of them. They even said to me one time, hey, these are really nice. If you want to keep one, keep one. Like, oh, no. Like, I don't break a small rule, so I won't break a big rule. So no, I have a job. I'll buy my own blanket, right? So every year I do a Christmas gifts from Santa Claus, right, for all the shelters. I spend my entire Christmas Eve, not with my family, but on the street. Sometimes I bring my granddaughters because I feel like they need some humbling, you know? So, and we deliver gifts. And my friend Rose Ellens, and I've been doing this for like 10, 11 years, but she finally joined in, and her children. And I'm not a good rapper, but she raps so well that you would think these gifts are coming from Neiman Marcus. And but I do a fundraiser, and other people over the years have joined in, and other people do fundraisers and get everything's brand new. And I go to the shelters, all through the shelters in November, and convince the children that I'm good friends with Santa Claus. And what do you want for Christmas? Give me 3 things, you know? And of course, every now and then I get the brand new iPhone. Yeah, no, Santa's really poor this year. Sorry, he doesn't have an iPhone for you. But anyway, but they're wonderful. I love the kids. And I ask them, I take their name, and I have like a list. I go through this whole thing. And then once I start raising money or toys, and it's like this whole, divide and conquer mission to figure out like what names to put like to so-and-so from Santa Claus, right? So everything's from Santa Claus. And then I do the Valentine's and the Easter basket thing, and the winter coats and the back to school backpacks. And, I do this all on my own. Well, I initiate it, but I have a lot of community help from people. And I'm so grateful for that, because I couldn't do it without them, right? And then whatever shelter or organization that I, bring these items for, whatever the, whatever it is, whether it's back to school or Christmas or whatever, I tell them, I keep the receipts, and I tell that organization, whether it's Good News Partners or Acclivus, and then they write the letter for the donation so they can claim that, it's a tax deductible donation. I don't have a not-for-profit, but I'm like the conduit, so then everyone is able to get that letter. And then plus, I don't take pictures. I'm not one of those. I'm not going to exploit any children on Facebook or something. And if I do talk about something I've done in the community, it's not about me. It's about letting people know that this small act of kindness has made a child smile, so kind of like that, or prevented violence, but I try to stay away from that on social media, as much as I can. But yeah, the parallel, I totally know what everyone's going through. I totally know how they think. I've been there, I can predict their next thought, and they kind of joke with me, Bianca, quit stalking us. You're stalking us, and, I have a good relationship with all these young guys that I like to call the invisible population, right? Whether it's that at risk for violence population, or homeless, or addiction. These are all invisible populations that no one wants to look at, people turn their head from that. Oh my God, so, and I know that, and I use my own lived experience as much as possible to prove the result, of what can happen. If one person believes in you, you don't know what will happen.
You spoke about how people want to keep the marginalized people, their needs, etc., invisible. You're super intelligent, and you're in so deep with the workings of the community. What do you see as a possible solution that the, let's say, elected officials could do to address all this the poverty and marginalization? Is there anything that could be done?
Yes, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. So a long term, and like I said, there's no judgment here. Okay. And legislators, they do their research and they're brilliant, and, they have the appropriation hearings, and they give out the money through the ICJ, the Illinois Justice Authority, and who then allocates it out to different organizations for all different things, whether it's, addiction or homelessness or, violence prevention. And so long term, I feel like a lot of legislators are I know a lot of them that are really more in tune and go like into the communities and kind of really, but I think the long-term goal would be accountability, because once they, I don't want it to be that whoever, like some big name, executive director goes to Springfield and he talks the best game, so he's going to get the 10 million, and then I'm not trying to bash anybody, but there are a lot of organizations in Chicago that I will not even name because I don't want to bash anybody, but I don't see them on the street, and they have a whole lot of money. And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And I know when I worked as a violence interrupter in the beginning and outreach worker, supervisor, program manager in the Rogers Park Uptown community, even when I was promoted to like supervisor and program manager, I wasn't one of those that were like, oh, well, now I'm the boss and I'm going to stay home and just let me know where you are. No, I was out there, and Bill could tell you, I was out there with the staff. No one did anything that I didn't do myself with them, right? And so in recent years, I'm known to like zigzag through the city because I know people from all over, and I'll zigzag through. And during the height of the pandemic, I was stopping on the West Side a lot, and or everywhere. But there's this one story, and I was alerted, like another person I know was like handing out masks and stuff like that. And she was like, she was handing them out for Acclivus. Acclivus had a not-for-profit organization, had gotten a lot of masks and whatever you call it. What do you call it? Sanitizer. I'm sorry. Oh my God. So anyway, but to pass out to the community to keep them safe, right? And so one girl told me that the guys on the street, and she really doesn't come from that life, but she was trying to help, saying like they were shocked, right? Like, who are you and what do you want, right? Well, so then I started doing it. I went by the Acclivus office and I asked, can I put stuff in my trunk? And, yeah. And I went on Pulaski and, Madison and all through there. I parked my car and I had all this stuff in a backpack full. And I was walking around and some of the guys were like, why are you here? And I go, because I care. And the kid said, these are like teenage boys. And he's like, you care? Nobody cares about us. And I go, I care about you. And I'm like, does anybody come out here and bring out, no one's come and brought you any masks or sanitizer or anything, or talk to you, or help you? No, never. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm pretty sure there's an organization that's supposed to be here, but okay, but anyway, so I don't know what organization would be working there, but I know that the way it's set up, there's like some few small areas in each community, that are, marginalized that people work in. And that really hurt my heart, and I continue to stop. And now not so much. I still have a whole back seat of masks in case people want them, but also, like referrals, and people will call me because they want to get into Safe Haven or Haymarket. So it's not just violence with me. Like you know what, here, I have to say this. I know nobody could save the world, right? And so, but I'm going to delusionally keep believing that I could save the world. And I'm going to keep trying to save the world every day, one day at a time, until I die. And maybe I'll make a dent. I don't know. I'm going to try.
Evidently, word is out that you do save lives, because did you ever get a chance to learn how that elderly lady learned that there was if anybody could save her 2 cats, it would be you?
No, I don't know how she found me. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, actually, I haven't talked to her since right before the pandemic, but every now and then she was calling. I probably should check on her to see. I don't know, but she was elderly and sick, so I don't know what actually happened with her. But she would call me. I gave her my number through Messenger. She probably had one of her children, or reach out to me. I'm not sure that she even was savvy like that with Facebook and all that. But yeah, I mean, I talked to her. There was this one kid, and mind you, I don't even know this kid, but every time I go to LA, I used to go to the Grammys a lot. I'm blessed for that, because of Lynn Norman Weiss. So anyway, but sometimes you get like kind of up to here with all these like fancy parties. And I usually will tell Lynn, look, I'm not coming tonight. And she's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm putting my jeans and my boots on and I'm going to Compton or Inglewood and LA, and she's like, oh my, you don't want to come and meet Dolly Parton? And I'm like, no, I don't really care. No. And so I remember I started doing that. And so every time I go to LA, I do that. And I just go talk to random guys and I make friends with all these, other people. And so I started interacting with a guy from Sacramento that through word of mouth got my name and my number. And he was trying to get out of that lifestyle, but was not able to. They weren't letting him, and his life was at danger. And he was like 14 or 15, you know? And one night he called me and he said, I just want to tell you that, you know, like, I love you and for the person you are and for caring, but I'm going to kill myself, you know? And like, it was more than just like a idle threat. Like, he was serious, you know? And so I kept trying to talk with him, like literally in the middle of the night, in the dark with my phone, sitting on my bed in Rogers Park and going back and forth, and him hanging up on me because he's going to shoot himself. And then he was texting and then he wouldn't answer. And so to make a long story short, I went through his Facebook list and found who likes his post the most, you know, often, right? And found a girl, inboxed her and said, I know this sounds crazy. My name is Bianca. I'm from Chicago. I'm not the police. Please call me right now. This is urgent emergency. Please call me. So she called. And then I said, you know, we talked about the situation. She knew of this situation. And I said, do you happen to know the guys that he's in conflict with? And she was like, yeah, they actually live in the basement of my building. And I go, okay, I need you right now to go down there, you know, knock on the door and hand them your phone, you know? And then she was like, okay, well, I'll call you back. And then she did, and I called her again. So make a long story short, I got them to stand down, the guys, right? They were like, okay, look, you know, we're done, you know? And then the kid did not kill himself. Went back, he had already been kicked out of high school. I helped him get into it, and I'm in Chicago, and I helped him get into an alternative high school, which he went to. And then when he graduated, and then when he graduated and he went on the stage, and he said, he gave me a shout out, and his girlfriend was filming it. And then he tagged me on Facebook, and I started crying. You know, he was like, this wouldn't be possible without Bianca from Chicago. I was like, oh my God, you know, like he was literally going to kill himself, you know, and I do keep in touch with him. I keep in touch with everybody. So I keep in touch with him, and they call him Marcel, and he's this great guy now, young man now, you know, and doing well and working in college, pursuing a career in, you know, technology. So I'm like really proud of him, and I've never even met him, you know, but I feel like, you know, he's my kid or something, you know.
When you, hang on just a second. For meanwhile, what are the 3 people that you admire the most that affected you, and why?
So are you talking about when I was younger or older?
I guess so.
Like
Older
in my
yes.
new life.
Yes,
Yeah.
your new life.
So there's so many, but I was always very inspired by Kelly Cassidy, because Representative Cassidy, because I would see her like in the community, literally, you know, reaching out to people and talking to mothers who had just recently lost a child or something like that. So I remember saying, oh my God, I want to be just like her, but I'm not going to run for office. But anyway, but yes, I felt her passion, you know, like to kind of care and, you know, be there, be a shoulder. Also, there's like people like Jane Addams. My family has a huge history with Jane Addams, Hull House. My uncle learned to play the piano there, learned to sew during the Depression and all that stuff. So anyway, and the famous picture of Jane Addams where she's sitting and all the children are around her, the little girl with the locks and blonde hair is like one of my great aunts, you know? So anyway, so Jane Addams, definitely. I'm inspired by so many people. Sheila Regan, the COO of Acclivus, LaVon Stone Sr. Oh my God, he is like one of the most inspiring people I have ever known in my entire life. He was paralyzed years ago through violence. And sometimes when that happens to people and they're in that situation, they just get by day and struggle, right? But he has far exceeded, like went back to college and masters, and now he's the CEO of Acclivus, and you never see him without a crisp, nice, you know, shirt and tie and a wonderful smile that brightens up the whole world, right? And very helpful. And I credit him for, I had got my GED in prison. And I was thinking like, okay, now you're change your life. Why don't you go, get your degree, right? And but then I was never doing it. I was kind of procrastinating. And Levon would say to me, and I wouldn't see him a real lot because I was either traveling internationally or nationally, and so him as well. And then sometimes I'd see him at UIC, and then I'd be excited to see him, like to tell him some story. I'd be like, Vaughn, I got to tell you this. And he would say, Bianca, is it life-threatening? And I'd say, well, no, but I want to tell you, did you register for college yet? And I'd go, no, but I'm going to. No, then you tell me the story once you register for college. So he did this for a while. He'd always ask if it was life-threatening because then he would have listened, right? But it would be some random funny story. And so then finally, I did go register at Northeastern Illinois University. And I was so excited when I saw him to show him my student ID. I was like, look, I'm a college student. And then he was like, okay, I'm a man of my word. Come to my office and tell me all those stories. And I was like, I don't even know what they were. I forgot, but yeah. So there are a lot. I don't think I can narrow it to 3 people. But I can tell you that when I first got out of prison, I did not even know how to turn on a computer, literally. And through wonderful, whether it was interns or students or women that I worked with at CeaseFire, Cure Violence later, and even just like the HR lady, like all these different, like if I ever had a question, like, wait, I'm trying to learn Excel. How do I, and even Bill helped me, like I would take my computer and go to his office and be like, Bill, show me, I need to learn this now. And he'd be like, okay, calm down, So there's so many people that helped me along my journey that I can't isolate it to 3. But I can tell you that I am grateful to each and every person, and I never, ever, ever forget them. I'm not one of those people. Some people recover from that lifestyle and they don't want to talk about it. And that's okay. I don't judge them. As long as they are living a healthy lifestyle, that's great. Me, on the other hand, I have to be the voice to the voiceless, and I have to scream it from the rooftops that anybody can change. And I'm going to, here to help, refer you to, if I can't help you, somebody I know can. So.
For voters, do you see that voting can help address maybe these problems that of poverty and marginalization? And if so, how are you able to convince people to go out and vote? Because some people register, but on the day of the election, only 10 or 15% turn out.
Well, I'm only one person, but I do my part. So so ahead of time, I will help young people, specifically in marginalized communities. And I know Acclivus has a whole team that does this as well. And but even till this day, I will be like, are you registered to vote? Or somebody will say to me, hey, I need a state ID. I don't have an ID. I just got out of jail. I'm like, okay, cool. Here, I'll take you, and I'll go to the DMV with them. And then while they're, the lady will say, do you want to register to vote? And I'm like, do you want to register to vote? You need to be a part of the process, and I don't force them, but I kind of educate them why they should. And then they register. If that's not the case, I'm with a clipboard, because I took the training, and then I have them fill it out, I sign, and I drop it off at a legislator's office, right? So I will help get people registered. And like you said, but they don't go vote, right? So here's me, early voting and on voting day. I take off a lot of those days. I use my vacation time, and I drive around and find these guys that I know I helped, or girls that I know I helped, you with the paperwork or whatever to get registered. And I'm like, okay, come on. I could fit 3 in, let's go. And I wait with them. I tell them, look, I can't tell you who to vote for. You can vote for whoever you think is best, but you need to vote. You have to vote. You have to be a part the process, right? And they do, like the ones that I can get to. There's some of them are like, I don't want to be bothered, but I drive literally all day, and I make multiple trips back and forth, and those poor people that are standing out there with the flyers, for the different legislators are just like, wait, didn't you just vote? I'm like, yeah, I'm on something else, but that's what I do. But like I said, I want people to know. So I always say, like, if you don't vote, don't complain, right? Like, you don't get to complain, right? So it's going to take our community and us being educated enough to vote for the proper people that are going to align to change policy, enrich lives, the lives of the people living in marginalized communities, and address the root causes. And back to the last question, the accountability. When you give all these millions of dollars to somebody, I know they do audits and all that stuff, but are they really looking into the audits? Like, pick them apart, because I know I would pick them apart, like, let's see, like, I'm not trying to say anybody lies or anything like that, but I have to brag right now. Acclivus has barely been around maybe about 3 years, acclivusinc.org. And they, during a pandemic, had 2 audits and passed them with flying colors, not 1 penny off, right? So I feel like, they're, and people always say to me, oh my God, on the South, they're in 6 Southside community neighborhoods, and Washington Park, Washington Heights, Fuller Park, Grand Crossing, Grand Boulevard, Fuller Park. What did I say? Fuller Park. I don't know, but there's 6 of them, and then they're in a 5 level 1 trauma center hospitals, where the hospitals actually call them when a gunshot victim is on the way, if it's one of those hospitals, so they could try to intervene. Possibly a person just got shot and they're going to live. They may be vulnerable to, like, whoa, I didn't sign up for that. I could have died, and maybe they can help them. But I always hear people say, oh my God, I always see these areas that Acclivus is funded to work in saturated with staff. They have a lot of staff, and they're from the top to the bottom, they're all accountable. And that's why I do consultant work with them. It's not my full-time job, but I want to help in any way I can. So.
And
accountability. It's all about accountability. I want every legislator to know it's great that you're giving money and you truly believe that you're changing lives, but follow up. You got to follow up on this stuff,
Yes, because what you're saying is that try as hard as you can to help. If whatever is happening, there's no accountability, then a lot of your work will go to waste.
Right. And people aren't going to be helped. So if we're footing the bill to help marginalized communities, but nobody's really helping, or maybe 1 or 2 people, then what are we doing? You know what I mean? That's my thing, Now, I know that as far as UCAN, that organization, they have a lot of good programs for after school and youth programs. I can't comment. I don't know what they're doing with violence prevention, but as far as I know, so there's all different, like Breakthrough, O&E, they do a lot of good work as far as with, different in schools. They've got all types of, they're more organizers, but, so I mean, there are some great organizations out there, but unfortunately, those great organizations are not getting as much money as the organizations that probably aren't out there like they say they are, so I get frustrated, but, what can I do? Short from running for governor, I guess, I don't know. There's nothing I can do about that, but I keep trying, so.
You were privileged and spoiled as a young girl. Do you think you would have made decisions to spend so many years with addiction and being addicted to crime if you were not as privileged?
So I don't even like, okay, I know the word privilege and I know the actual real meaning of it. My family was actually very poor, and a lot of people think that privilege means like you were rich, which of course it doesn't. It just means the color of my skin. I may not get stopped by the police where somebody else may, right? So, and other definitions. But with me, I was so spoiled, and no, I don't think it would have made a difference, because I think that what could have made a difference in my life when I was younger is if I was held responsible, or, you know what I mean? If it was like, no, you have to come home at 8 p.m., you know, or when the street lights come on or something, you know. But there, and I got to tell you, when I changed my life and started reuniting with people from, you know, grade school, high school, and the first time my best friends from high school and I know them since third grade, when we met for lunch. And the first thing when I got there, they said was, we just want to thank you. And I go, for what? You know, and they were like, when we were younger, you used to always take the rap for us, you know, and like if they got in trouble, I would say I did it, even though I didn't do it. And they'd say, you always took the rap. Thank you. And I go, well, I did that because if you did something wrong, or and the principal called your parents, you would be grounded all summer. I had a grandma. She'd be like, don't do it again. And I'd be like, okay, whatever, you know, and then that would be that, right? So it was more like, I don't know, like, I guess, you know, pros and cons or something. But yeah, I think that I had no responsibility at all. And then I always say a human being, a child that starts using hard drugs at 9 years old and continues to do so, adulthood and motherhood is never going to look good for that person, right? And I'm just grateful today that I am reunited with my family and my children and my grandchildren, and I spend a lot of time with them. And if they never wanted to talk to me again, I would have to accept that, because I did that. They did nothing wrong, right? And so I'm really grateful that they chose to have a relationship with me. And you know, I'm just proud of all the people they have become, and how, you know, how my youngest two were adopted out. Their parents were so gracious. I remember when I first signed the papers, I knew I couldn't take care of them. You know, I mean, I wanted to, I felt bad, but I wasn't willing to change my life at that time, apparently. And so I remember crying in the juvenile court and asking the woman, with tears, and I said, if I ever change my life, will you let me see my children? And she said yes. And she kept her word. And she kept in touch with my mother. My mom did come back into our lives, you know, and my mother passed away in 2016. And I'm grateful that I was able to spend the last 5 years of her life with her, that she knew when she died, her first child was okay, you know. And I say there's no better gift to give a mother than to give the mother back her child, right? And so, and, you know, but anyway, so when I did my mom and so all my kids kind of interacted here and there, but they weren't raised together as siblings, but they knew each other. And again, I was able to reconnect, and I'm close with Uncle Joey, Aunt Louise, my cousins. I mean, it's like everyone jokes and says, my family, they're like, how did you fall off the planet for 30 years and you come right back and now you're the golden child again? Everybody loves you, you know? And I'm like, well, I don't know, you know, but my Uncle Joey is quite the character. He designs if you follow me on social media and you see me in a fancy gown, my Uncle Joey designed it, handmade it, you know, and he's like 84, you know, and his eyesight's getting bad now, but he still tries. But he's made me, I have a closet full of gowns. And my Aunt Louise, I'm like the daughter she never wanted. She had 2 boys, you know, so I have to hear a lot of chewing out now and then, you know, especially like, no, don't get on a plane. You're not going to a concert, you know, you better wear your mask, you know, and stuff like that. But it's all great. And I'm just grateful to be able to, and my brother, my half brother, Richie, me and him like fondly argue, you know, and it's like hilarious, you know, and it's like a good feeling to me that I can be back in the fold and like arguing with my brother, like, no, you're wrong. And he's like, you're wrong. And, you know, so I'm grateful for every moment of my life.
Do you know if your granddaughters read your book? And if so, what did they think about it?
My grandchildren?
Yes.
Yes. So when it came out, I told my grandchildren, you can never, ever, ever read this book ever in your whole life, So anyway, so then this is like some years ago, and they were young. Now my Gemma is like, I think probably like 14, I don't know, but they're getting, older. And my Gianna is in high school. She goes to Benwick, Park, and Damien is, and then I have Natalie and my little Lincoln and Elijah and Isabella, but they're young, but anyway, but Gemma is very outgoing, and it's my son's daughter, and she would come and spend the weekends with me, all the kids, anyway. And she's real dramatic. She's like me. I'm like, oh boy, and she'd put her hand on her waist and go, I Googled you, and I'd be like, oh, like, oh boy, and then I'm like, okay, Gemma, I had to talk to her. And so this is when she was younger. And as she's been getting older, she'll text me a picture. I stopped at Barnes & Noble and there's your book, so I don't know if they've actually read it, but I've heard them say, like that the book is at their house, so I mean, their mom, I don't know, but probably maybe not. They kind of already know, but they do a lot of Googling with me and, like nosy stuff, to know about, and they call me gangster grandma. So I don't know if that's in a fun, happy way, not a bad way, and then they're like, Grandma, I was in this cafeteria at school and I looked over and this girl was reading your book. And I'm like, oh God, like I just don't want to traumatize children, because it's very honest, so. But yeah, I don't know if they've actually read it, but I do know they Google me and they know the story, and I've told them about it and I've talked with them. I help people that are not related to me, so I'm going to try to deter them, and they're all good kids though, thankfully. So.
Yes. Well, you told them not to read it, but I think that eventually they will.
They will. Yeah, I can't stop them. Yeah. They may have already, and they're just not telling me, and that's
And when the
okay.
movie comes out, they'll see it too. When the movie comes out, they'll see it too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So Sandra Bullock, her agent, was in touch with my lawyer, my book, the entertainment attorney, and some pre-COVID, and was like, wow, because Rick, I forget his name, from the Chicago Tribune, in the entertainment section, did a story on the book, and he interviewed me and Linda. And then it was like, and during the time I was saying, when I was younger, I'm going to write a book, then it also escalated into, and then it's going to be a movie, and then Sandra Bullock's going to play my part, and then she's going to win an Oscar. Like every year I'd add on, and then I'm going to be in the front row at the Oscars, and she's going to be like, oh, thank you, and blah blah, and then she's going to point at me. I have it all worked out in my brain, so where I'm going to be like touched, and and Sandra wins her second Oscar, but anyway, so somehow her with celebrities, any mention of their name, they get their agents get notifications, and they reached out to the Tribune and were like, we want to talk to this girl. Oh my God, and so then there was some talk going back and forth, and Sandra read the book and was extremely inspired, but had a lot of projects going, and then the pandemic hit. So, but now we're kind of like talking again. I have a public relations agent, Donna Seguro of Olander Public Relations, and she's back in talks with Beth Swinford, Bullock's agent, and they're supposed to meet in 6 months. Because Sandra needs some time off. She just did a movie, and I don't really know how that would look. Because that book, there's so many characters. Like, how do you put that into a movie, right? So I don't know. Maybe it could be like what I do now with flashbacks as to what makes me credible. How Hollywood is, and they may, fluff it, but then people will actually buy the book and learn the true story. So, yeah,
I heard
my grandchildren will definitely be at them. I'll be like, oh my God, Actually, I'll bring them to the premiere with me.
I actually heard that sometimes with books that have a lot of characters, they just simplify it and combine a couple of characters into one, just to make it a little bit more digestible. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
you also described your relationship with your childhood friend, Mark, and then he also became clean. But do you know how he became clean? Because it wasn't you that convinced him to be clean, right?
No. So he was, when I got clean, as time, 6 months, 7 months was going by, now I'm sober and thinking clearly. And I start, you remember like my best friend this, or, and Mark and I were very close from Oak Park, from grade school, and in the life together and all that. And then when I went by his brother's house and then found him through his brother and his sister-in-law, Adele and Jack, and they Mark happened to be living with them, but he was like working or he was somewhere. And so then I waited, and then it was like this big reunion, and then Mark had told me he had been clean already for some time. And so I think how he got clean is he was in prison. He was kind of like at the end, like he went through, like what I did, but maybe like minus 15 years of it, and but he got out of prison and went into a long-term program. And because like he had like same thing, you were high on the hog in the beginning, and the end you're homeless, penniless, living hour by hour, right? And he told me that he went through this program, and then he stopped getting high, and it worked for him. I think it was that maybe it was Brandon House, one that's like kind of out far. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that, but a really good program that he lived at, and he did really well, and he's never done heroin again. And so, he finally refers to me as Blanche, he's Blanche and I'm Baby Jane from, Betty Davis. And so I'm always like, hey, Blanche. And he's like, hey, Baby Jane, and, he refers to us as Will and Grace, because he's gay. And he'll refer to us as Will and Grace on drugs, so like in our past life, yeah, we're Will and Grace on drugs, and we crack up about that. But yeah, he used to even say that back then when that show came out, he'd be like, oh, that's us, but except we're on drugs. Hilarious. But yeah, and I see him, and every time I go out to visit him, he lives near Schaumburg and in a nice house, and he's doing really well. And I'm always like, Mark, do you have food? And he's like, oh God, can you start cooking? And I'm like, I'm too busy. I don't cook. So every time I call him, he's like, yes, okay, just come over. I've got this, I'm making this, so everyone feeds me. So, but yeah, Mark's doing great. And we're still just as close as ever, like brother and sister.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You mentioned that you were so proud of yourself, and because it never happened to you before, when you got your first paycheck of $89 and something.
Yeah.
Were you able to convey to your friends that, and also to the people that you are trying to help, the joy of that first paycheck, and then maybe how it could also apply to them?
Yeah, I tell that story all the time, as a matter of fact, in the communities. I always say, because a lot of guys, you're making big money, selling drugs or whatever, right? And then to work so I felt like I worked so hard that I felt that I should have gotten $5,000, and to see that, and then to be proud and and then anyway, I use that all the time. Any experience I go through at different times when I'm in the communities, I use them. And if it's a thing about I'm like, hey, can you get me a job? And I'm like, okay, it's more to just getting a job. It's changing your behavior, right? So I'm kind of, yeah, I can get you a job, but can you drop clean? And no, okay, well then we got to work on that, or, whatever. And then or some guys will be like, no, I'm not going to work for minimum wage, no, I make way more money. And then I tell that story, and then they're like, oh my God, $89, and I'm like, I know, right? I was like, what is happening, and then I said, but then I just went with it, and I was proud. It was my legal money. I made this money and I opened a bank account with it, at Bank of America, on Roosevelt, actually, and in Ashland. And then got a better job. And my first salary at CeaseFire was $15 an hour, which that felt like, woo, this is rich for me, And so, and then to get my first apartment. So I do use those. I do talk about that in the communities. I tell the stories, and Linda Beckstrom is a good writer. She's a brilliant writer, but I'm a really good storyteller. Like, I can make things come to life while you're listening or watching me. And the guys I know they feel that. They feel that joy that I felt on that, when I got on the Green Line, right, from downtown, the Merchandise Mart. And then when I got on the L and opened the check and first saw it, I was like shocked and excited of joy that it was legal, right? And so I know they feel that. And I pull whatever experiences throughout my life that are necessary at the time to convey a message. So yeah, and it's like, I'm so law abiding that I have to laugh at myself sometimes. And like if I'm parking and I'm like a half an inch over the yellow line, like this is a real problem for me. Like I get out of my car and I look and I'm like people walking by, I'm like, excuse me, sir, do you think I'll get a ticket? Like, is that bad? Or am I like, well, and I contemplate, I have to laugh at myself. And then I'm like, no, I can't do it. And then I move and find another parking spot and walk 2 blocks home, So, and it's crazy because now I do presentations and, forums with law enforcement. I'm like, I was the keynote speaker for a couple of years ago with, FBI agents and all types of law enforcement. And it's like, and I wasn't there to sell books, but some of them had bought my book and brought it because knew I was going to be speaking. And then afterwards, they were like, can you autograph this? And it was like kind of, and I always joke with them. And I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. Is this like an undercover statement I'm signing here? And then we laugh, I joke with them. But yeah, so in my work, I do not work with the police. I don't, so when they introduce me as a person being in between the offender and the police, right? And when I work with young people, I tell them, like, I can help you now, but once you cross that line, I got nothing. The best I can do is send you a Christmas card. You know what I mean? Come to visit you in jail now and then, maybe. You know what I mean? You have to listen to me now. Many don't. And I've gone to visit in the county jail, a lot of the guys, and they have all said, every one of them has said to me, because I tell them, you're going to hear my voice when the cell door slams. And then I ask them when I go visit them, they're like, yes, I heard your voice. I heard your voice telling me this, So I'm like, well, a lot of them, serve their time, get out. And I'm there when they get out to try to help them with reentry resources, and housing or whatever they may need, I have a whole brain. Well, I'm a wealth of resources in my head. And that's another reason why I try to stay in tune and talk and meet and stay bonded and follow up with people of all walks of life throughout Chicago, because you never know when I'm going to need them, for a referral, right? So
when you spoke about you've described a lot of what you did that was illegal, and then at one time, there was a lot of law enforcement looking for you, but now they know what you've done, and
crazy.
Yeah, even though maybe the case was open, they've closed the books, right? You don't have to worry about that anymore.
No, I just actually did a webinar 2 weeks ago with the Assistant State's Attorney's Office, right? And there's like a cop on there and all these state's attorneys, right? And it was a webinar because April is Sexual Abuse Month, right? Or Sexual Awareness Month, so Sexual Harassment Awareness Month. So anyway, so we're talking, and I've talked with them on other, topics, and like trying to work with them to identify root causes for lower level felonies, that instead of sending a person to prison for shoplifting, let's find out why they're shoplifting and treat that root cause. That will ultimately save that, less of a burden on the tax base, but more importantly, help that person, right? But anyway, but this webinar 2 weeks ago, when I'm seeing all these faces, and I look and I'm like, okay, wait, before we start, I just have to say, all of you people right here at one time were chasing me, apprehending me, charging me, arresting me, locking me up, putting me in court, sending me to prison. And now here you're asking for my input. Like, oh my God, is this full circle? I am so honored, So yeah, it's like surreal,
Well, you've got the experience. You must meet some people that are like you, that are like what you used to be, that were kind of getting high with all the thrill seeking in that life of crime. So what do you say to those people?
I like there are. I'm currently trying to get a couple of girls, on the Northwest side, who are reaching out to me, and they're prostituting or stealing, and they're badly addicted to heroin, and they actually are reaching out to me, and I feel that they sincerely, are like, I want to change, you inspire me. Like I was out there with them and now I'm not, right? So, but then they kind of don't follow through, and it hurts my heart, because I want to like go and get in my car and go over and go like, come on, we're going to do it now. But we can't, or you got to want to change, right? So I have to be patient, and I keep talking with them and trying to encourage them that they can do this, and also, like, I know any addict or alcoholic or anything, you have really all of this, any kind of dysfunctional behavior, it's learned behavior, right? And so we can change that. And a person has to be ready to want help, to receive the help, right? But after you're ready, I could have just gotten sober and got a job and just moved on, right? But my motivating factor to really, was my family. My, of course, to save the world, but then also I had to get back to my family. I couldn't let any more family members die, and I haven't seen them. I didn't want to die and not see my children or my grandchildren. I'd never met them, And the first few times that I was like invited to a family gathering, I couldn't even tell my grandchildren. They were like, don't say. I'm like, okay. So they somehow, we laugh at it now because they gravitated to me. And I've got this picture of my 2 little grandchildren on my lap. And they were like playing with my hair. And they just thought I was they didn't know who I was, but thought I was just some nice lady that somebody invited to the Christmas party, And then at the end of the book, when you see where I finally was able to tell them that I was her grandmother, Gemma, that's the book ends, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but, that was the most, one of the most heartfelt things in my life, when that little, 3 or 4 year old little girl, when I was putting her in that car seat when they were leaving, and she pulled my face to her ear, and she, so she could talk in my ear, "Are you my grandma?" And I said, "Yes." And she was like, "I love you, Grandma." And I said, "I love you too." So I just got a shiver right now, after never even knowing them. And I've gone zip lining with them. I can't wait till they turn 18 so I can jump out of a plane with them. And I'm always doing stuff with them. So I'm about to take my daughter Ashley, her daughter Natalie, like as soon as it gets a little nicer out, we're going horseback riding. And, I just want to be involved in their life, And I've already turned my 3-year-old grandson, Lincoln, into a Trekkie. I love Star Trek. And I've already turned him into one through babysitting. And my daughter now tells me that, like, when I'm not there, and the parents, her and her husband are what do you want to watch, to my grandson? And he's like 3. And he's like, you want to watch this, like some kids movie or something? No, Star Trek. And I'm like, oh boy, okay, yay. Me and him, one day we'll go to a Star Trek convention, right?
Mhm.
So.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us on Wizard via Zoom, Angalia Bianca, author of In Deep, How I Survived Gangs, Heroin, and Prison to Become a Chicago Violence Interrupter. And we also have Bill Morton, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Bianca, by the way, you were talking about how you enjoy Star Trek and how your family enjoys Star Trek. So which Star Trek do you enjoy the most?
Voyager. Well, now Picard. I'm like crazy with Picard. I can't. Every Wednesday, like if I don't have anything to do early Thursday morning, I literally will stay up Wednesday night until 2 a.m. Thursday morning, because that's when it gets released. So I can watch, like, I am a huge Jerry Ryan 7 of 9 fan, and Captain Janeway, Catherine Muldrew, whatever her name is. Anyway, I just know Captain Janeway. Anyway, so I'm a huge fan, and I can tell you, I always have been like this. Even on the streets, I'd find somewhere somebody's TV or in prison, like where the other girls would be like, "Wait, who is this watching Voyager?" But I can tell you that during the darkest times of my life, the character 7 of 9 got me through those. Like I would draw strength from 7 of 9, because she's strong and perfection, and she's not going to give up, and you're not going to, and I remember like I said, even back in the day, I'd be like in the projects and be like, "Hey, can I watch your TV?" Yeah, go ahead. I'm not watching it. I'd be watching Voyager. So it's crazy. But I actually, let me see if you can see there. Wait, right there. Wait, right there is an autographed photo of Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9. So I'm like, yeah, I'm a huge fan. You can tell I'm getting a little fangirlish here, but I want to go to Vegas on August 25th. I don't know if I have the money, but if I do, I want to go. So because there's going to be a convention there, and Jerry Ryan and Captain Janeway will be there. And I just need a picture with them. I really just want to tell them the impact that they made on my life, their characters. And another person who made an impact during my prison years is Steven Van Zandt. And because of the underground garage, the radio station, right? And being in prison, you don't get a whole lot of radio stations, but we had a little Walkman with headphones, and that radio show with that Steven Van Zandt show back then. It's called the Underground Garage, right? I think, but anyway,
Little Steven, right?
Yeah, Little Steven's Underground Garage. Yeah, so it would come on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. And I would look forward, because I'm a huge music, and it's not just rock and roll. I love blues. I love jazz. I love Beethoven. I love Mozart. I love, like hip hop, rap. Like there's no music that I don't like, And so, but we'd always have like the history part to eat before each song. So his TV and his radio show got me through the week, looking forward to that Sunday night, so I can listen. And then you get the little history from him, and then I'd be blasting the music, and nobody can hear it but me, but yeah. So he really was inspirational to me there. He doesn't even know it. I wish I could tell these people, because sometimes people, whether it's a movie star or a musician or a Bill Morton, or, anyone, right? They have no idea the impact, ripple effect that they can make on people, right? Even myself with the work I do, even like with Acclivus or my CeaseFire, and even my own, right? Like, we really don't know how far that ripple goes, right? So I feel it important to acknowledge those that because it's kind of nice when someone's like, wow, I heard about you 5 years ago and blah, blah, blah. And now, it rippled, So I think it's really important. And I really wish I could tell little Stevie and Jerry Ryan and, Kate that I was inspired, and they got me through some of the darkest times of my life. So.
Yeah. Well, you aspire to you see the best of what they are, what they portray and what they do. So you had very high aspirations for a long time.
Yeah, I think so. I just, I knew that like during all those years, I really believed I did become immune to the lifestyle. And I did believe that there was nothing I can do to change it. I had messed stuff up so bad that I could never go home, and I'll never see my family. And I kind of accepted that. And in the end, I've never been suicidal or wanted to die, but I kind of didn't even care if I did or not. It was like, whatever, and I look back at that now, and to think like, wow, people are always saying, oh, you have far exceeded any expectation of recovery, right? And I like, I'm going to be going starting at Northeastern for my master's. And I've had family members say, because I'm going to actually be 64 years old on August 12th. And they're like, especially the old school family members, well, what are you going to start a new career? Or, and I'm like, no, I just want to know I started something and I finished it. And then also I really mean this, when I die, maybe my great-great-grandchildren will go visit my grave and learn about me and be inspired to go, wow, after all that, and she got a bachelor and a master's, maybe they'll be inspired to go to school. So it's like, I'm always thinking of these crazy things, yeah. But I graduated with my bachelor degree from Northeastern Illinois University. I started in 2017 and I completed the studies in May of 2020. And I attended in-person classes, and the campus on the north side, on Bryn Mawr, or I think it's Bryn Mawr, and yes. St. Louis, yeah. So the program University Without Walls, yeah. So that's where I graduated from, and that's where I will be going to pursue a master's. And right now we're discussing, because I'm trying to figure out, because I want to get it in criminology, and not that I want to, like, I'm going to be a lawyer or something, but I want to, and sometimes when I'm speaking or giving testimony on something, and maybe somebody may be like, well, lived experience is not enough for you to speak on this because you're actually not an expert on this, then I want to be able to pull out of my purse a master's degree in criminology and say, well, yeah, actually, I am an expert. I have a master's degree. There you go. So it's kind of like that, because I go to great lengths to give a message, great lengths. Like if I have to act out a whole scenario, and sometimes I'm on the corners with guys acting out a whole scenario, where I should probably win my own Oscar on how, even though they're not, I'm not saying that they're carjacking, but I'll bring up the conversation. Let's talk about carjacking. I know none of you are doing this, and then I act out this whole scene of being the victim and the gun and how many ways this can go sideways. And they're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm watching a movie. And I'm like, okay, so are you getting the message though? So yeah, I go to great lengths. I'm constantly thinking of unique and different approaches that I can reach people.
Before I forget, did you have a major for your bachelor's?
Yeah, so it was inner city studies, like urban studies. And most of my work and classes were geared around most of them, and most of the essays and things that I had to write were either focusing on, a lot on data and how to use data to be able to identify and predict, what's going to happen in marginalized communities, but also young mothers, right? Young mothers of color in marginalized communities, and how do we get them self-sufficient so they can break the generational cycle of poverty, you know? So a lot of it was that. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, you know, and they liked the younger kids, you know, like, okay, I'm old, but I'm going to school. And they were all so nice to me, you know. They were like, oh no, God, that I really know, it's great. And, you know, so yeah. And my college advisor is Dr. Jackie Anderson, and she's wonderful. I just totally love her. I handed in a paper one day, and I was kind of like, oh, it was like last minute. I finished it. I had it in my purse, and I happened to throw, you know, like your mug that you close, that you put in your car to drink your coffee, and it wasn't closed all the way. I threw it in my purse because I thought, oh, I don't want to forget to bring it in the house. And so a couple coffee stains got on the top paper, and I thought, oh my God, I'm already here. I can't even rewrite this, you know, type it out. So I handed it in like all like scared, and I'm like, Dr. Anderson, I'm so sorry, but I dropped, like, there's some, you know. And she goes, oh my God, I'm so incredibly proud of you at this time. And I go, why? And she goes, I do this all the time. It happens to me, you know, with her coffee. So it's kind of funny. But anyway, yeah. So I really, I've been a speaker at Northeastern many times. Well, a lot of the universities, actually, even at UIC. And I really love students, you know, and I love that they're pursuing careers. And I helped some of the students. Now they're gone on and graduated, but from Northwestern, from Medill, who were getting journalism degrees. And like they were doing a documentary on the, like, I forget, the 51 women who were killed over the years, and no one ever, you know, that whole topic. And I bonded with them. So like I had them at my house, and we were interviewing and talking. I brought them into the communities where back in the day where I knew of, you know, women who were sex workers or drug addicts and got killed in the same manner, you know. So I love young people. I just love to see them succeed. I love their, you know, their drive, and I pull energy from that, you know, and that makes me want to do more.
Well, you do a lot, but when you see a person go through, what kind of low point would you say is the lowest point that you've seen someone that could be, and then what could you do to reverse that low point?
So a low point in someone else's life that I see now, right?
Yes.
Well, a low point, well, there's so many, you know, but like a low point is me walking up to somebody who's like, are walking down the block and seeing a person at the edge of the alley knotted out with a needle hanging out of their arm, you know what I mean? And that, number one, I carry Narcan, so, you know, and I'm trained how to, you know, with the nose thing. So if I feel they're ODing, I will, you know, one nostril, but 911 and the other in sequence. But anyway, sometimes they get mad at me, as I used to if somebody brought me out of an OD, because then the drugs are out of you and you're sick now, you know. But that's, you know, it's kind of hard, you know. I've seen, you know, people like that, and they're not ready for help. So you just try to be there and try to get them stable housing or somewhere to live, so they're freezing to death on the street, you know. And no judgment, you know, but I'm here when you need me. As far as young guys involved in high risk street activity, a low point I'm seeing is when they're, you know, they just found out, or like I've literally been on the street, you know, talking with guys, and a drive-by happens, you know, and that's like a really low point when you're like, not, I mean, even me to see that is still kind of like, you know, oh my God, right? But their peers to see their good friend that they grew up with laying there bleeding, you know. And I can only hope in that situation that because of that event of harm that was done to somebody, or a death, that I try to get to the individuals that saw that. Because if you, like studies have shown, if you have been exposed to violence, like then you're more likely to be violent. And I know there's a lot of naysayers that say, well, I was raised with guns in my house and I never, blah, blah, killed anybody or whatever. That's different. You know what I mean? I am not against a legal gun owner at all. I am definitely not, right? But it's a big difference from being a child raised that your father hunts or something like that, than being on the street and seeing somebody's brains blown out right in front of you, or being a child coming out of the store, buying a bag of chips and seeing that, who has absolutely nothing to do with it. So that's an imprint in the person's brain, and eventually they become immune to it. And I always say, and I've said this many times in trainings on violence prevention over the years, where I've said, I have a fictional lady that I made up. And I'm like, the old woman who lives on the 3rd floor apartment, she's 75, and she's never done anything wrong in her life, but she lives in a marginalized community with a lot of violence. And on a regular basis, she hears gunshots and sometimes ambulances. And she was wakened in the middle of the night and because of gunshots. And she looks up and doesn't hear an ambulance and goes, oh, they're just shooting again. Let me go back to sleep. That's traumatized and that's immune to violence. That's being immune, right? So because she feels powerless, my made up lady, but I'm sure there's plenty of women like that, right? And so I just try to, like I said, I'm one person, but I have to give a big shout out to my many colleagues that, whether it's their paid colleagues or not, that everyone's still my colleague, that do this work. And even though there's no more CeaseFire in Chicago, a lot of the people that at Acclivus are like the best of the best that work at CeaseFire, right? And they have done great things in a short time. And I can't say enough good things about them, but they are very accountable, and they're like, each person has a role and has to be accountable to the next, right? And so I'm like really proud, even though I'm not a full-time employee. I was helping them when they first, like anything, like I was like, I just want to be involved. I have to stay busy. I like that. So when they first launched it, I was like now, like it's like a contract where I can invoice them if I do any work. But I do, like in the beginning, the first year or so, I was like, just like, how can I help you? Do you need me to run data? What do you need from me? And I wasn't even asking for money, so it's like, they're really a good organization. So I have a lot of wonderful colleagues, and some colleagues that work at Build Chicago with at-risk youth in high schools. And all these people are people I have met that have the same passion as I do over the years, right? And we've bonded, and they call on me and I call on them, and sometimes we're together and we do, and a lot of the times I'm not even on the clock. It's not, is with me, and people probably, a lot of people are like, kind of like, you're totally lost your mind, like you deserve to be paid. And I'm kind of like, I want to save the world. I don't need to be paid. I need to be paid so I can keep my apartment and my car and eat and have gas and all that stuff. But I don't have to be rich. Money's nice, but that's not my motivating factor. My motivating factor is to work with these wonderful group of people throughout Chicago, throughout the country that do this work. I'm still in touch with a lot of people from upstate New York. Last year, I did a Zoom with Camden, New Jersey, for an organization called Family Services something, and the Zoom had the audience of high school kids with their parents, and then I, out of my own pocket, bought books because I get a discount, 50% from my publisher, and I had them mailed there to give for free to everyone that came on that Zoom, right? And so I had my publisher mail it there. And anyway, So, it's just like, I'm always moved by anybody. Like I always say, a lot of people, like you see these young people with like money and holding money and money, right? And I'm always like, look, money doesn't impress me. What you do for your community, that's what impresses me.
Back in the day, you told me about a very worst case scenario about when there's a drive-by shooting and the victim is with their family, and how you discouraged these people from shooting while they're with their family. Just promise me that. Just promise me that you'll shoot them when they're walking with their family. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is a thing that we were all kind of doing. It wasn't just me, but it was the concept that we came up with like a lot of innocent bystanders being killed, and not that I condone violence or any of us do in any possible way, but it was more like, if you can get someone to think about not shooting because of this reason, then you can start to talk about 2 and 3 reasons, right? So that situation was where a lot of times there's one person that may be the target, but that person is with their children or their mother, you know what I mean? Or a baby mama or something. And the shooter misses and hits the mother, So it was just like kind of this campaign that we were trying to all do all through Chicago. And I was actually like, even in my travels, like at airports, I would tell we just in talking, on layovers or something. I remember I got this little girl from, she was so cute. And I was like, can you say you support, it was called Pass 36, meaning like give a pass, get a pass. And so anyway, so I videoed the little girl going, I support Pass 36, So anyway, the idea of this was give a pass, and then you'll get a pass, right? Let's get that mindset going. So we're not saying like, whoa, wait till he drops his mother off, then kill him. But okay, there's family, there's other people walking by. Let's not bring them into a conflict they have nothing to do with, right? And then I would get guys, like they would say, hey, Bianca, I need a referral, I need an ID. Or can you give me some kind of help with something? And I would say, okay, I'll help you, but you got to do something for me. And they'd be like, what do I got to do for you? And I'm like, well, you got to promise me that, like if you are, I'm not saying, because I don't accuse anyone, allegedly, if you're around somebody that's allegedly going to shoot somebody, then allegedly you don't do it. And you particularly are going to promise me that you're not going to pick up a gun. And then they will. Now I can't say that they do, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that we got that message out there pretty well. And I remember one, and it's in my book actually, where during that time, and I think I shared this with you, Bill, when I was happened to be driving on Howard, and I happened to be behind the car that was about to do a drive-by, right? So I know the guy. I'm like, wait, I know them in there. So then I see them stop. I stop my car. I jump out. I'm in front of them. The other guys go running. They're probably going to try to allegedly get guns. And so then, and I'm like in front of the gun, and I'm like, no, and I'm screaming like I'm a maniac. I can't even believe that there were no police around, And then I got them to get back in the car, and I'm like, you got to go. Why are you in this hood? Go back to your own hood, blah, blah, blah. And then finally they tried to trick me actually, and they're like, okay, we're going to leave. And so they went to the corner, and instead of going straight back to their hood, they made a right to go deeper into the opposition hood. And I was like pissed. I was like, wait, hold on. Don't misjudge me. I didn't forget. So I used to be a getaway driver. So I went on the wrong side of the street, floored it. And I don't condone this, but I was in maniac mode to stop a shooting, and drove past their car and went right in front of it. Like they literally almost hit my car. And then I jumped out of the car, and I was like, told them they were like, okay. And then they're like, move your car. And I'm like, no, I'm not moving my car. You're going to make a 99-point turn right here, and you're getting the hell out, and I'm following you out. So when I got back to their neighborhood, they were kind of like, you know, like, where do you come from out of the blue, you know? And I've had young guys say to me, Bianca, do you sleep? You're the last person I see at night and the first person I see in the morning. And I'm like, no, I don't. I mean, I do sleep, but I kind of, you know, I'm a unique person, I think, you know, but like I said, I just really got to keep talking about my wonderful colleagues, because the risks that they take, the work that they do, and working with gunshot victims and their families, and also the work that's done when, you know, someone is killed, right? And they're working with the families in order to help them with the, you know, Chicago compensation for victims of gun violence, and to help, you know, like funerals, and like, there's just such amazing work. And I'm really proud to be a part of a team of people that care about the community. So I don't want anyone to think it's really, because I'm just one person. I'm just like a little, you know, just one person in the whole scene. So, but I'm grateful.
It seems as if coming down to it and condensing it, it seems that you and your team are focusing on not letting violence desensitize the people in the communities, because you want to preserve their the good about them, that they still care about somebody and someone and their families, etc. Is that kind of what you aim for, to not let violence desensitize people so that they resort to violence themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of variables, right? A lot of layers of the onion. So it's not only like in the moment right there of us stopping violence. And remember, like, you can't be everywhere. And the people that are funded, organizations that are doing this work, may only be funded in certain spots. So there's a whole lot of not covered areas, right? But also, like you say about being desensitized, children, right, that are walking home from Gale School have witnessed and experienced things. And I go to those classes, you know, this is pre-COVID, but I used to go to those classes, younger kids, you know, and kind of like try to talk with them. And, you know, I mean, like, because I guess, you know, I think maybe from my own experience of not being able to really talk it through about me being abused at 4 years old, and then my mother leaving me. So maybe that's why. I don't know. People say to me, do you do this work? Are you so, you know, focused and like hardcore at doing this work because you're trying to atone for your own children? And I don't think that's it. I really don't. I think that I really do. I would have been a good mother. I could have been a good mother had I not been on drugs, because I truly love children, you know. But I just, you know, I don't want a child to grow up a hardened heart and then end up in that route that I took, right? And again, with me, I wasn't raised seeing violence or, you know, at a young age, guns or drugs or, you know, any of that. So my grandmother didn't smoke, she didn't drink, you know, we didn't see our dad very often, but, you know, when I got older, I found out he was, you know, kind of not the father of the year, but anyway, but we loved him just the same. But anyway, you know, I just don't want anyone to go through that. And I know many children, you know, suffer from this thing, reliving these things they just saw. A third grader. There was this little girl, and her family has moved out of Rogers Park now, but this is some years ago. And I was in Willie White Park. And you know how like there's like second graders and they got their crew of kids on bicycles, you know? And so there's always like the leader, you know, like the one that everyone's following. So this little girl, they see me. I'm just standing there talking with people, and all these little kids come, and they're just standing on their bikes, and the speaker, you know, of the bike crew, the little girl, she gets off the bike and she puts her hand on her waist and she said, "Your name's Bianca." And I said, "Yeah." "What is your name, honey?" And she told me, and she goes, "Well, I heard that you used to be bad and that you used to do drugs." And I said, that's true. And then she said, I also heard that you don't do drugs now and that you're good and you save people. And I said, oh, I want to buy you a Barbie doll, right? So she was so sweet. So I gave her my card. I go, honey, if you ever feel frightened or scared, or just call me anytime. Then of course, you know, with kids, they all had to have my card. So I'm like, oh, here. So I got a call from this little girl. And she said I didn't have a phone, but she used somebody's phone. This is like about a couple months later. And honestly, I was on the next corner and I heard the gunshot. And so I was already going to the next corner to see what was going on, right? And so she saw this and got someone's phone and called my number and said, Bianca, so-and-so needs help. He's bleeding, you know, and I go, I'll be right there. So she had no idea that I was only 10 feet away. And then I got there. So she was acting like I was like, you know, Superwoman or Batman or something. And I just flew in, you know, and then she was like, anyway, the young man was okay. He lived, the ambulance came, everything was okay. But the little girl was like, see, she kept bragging, I told you she would come. I told you. And I was like, oh my gosh, this kid is too cute. So yeah, I try to inspire anyone I can with my own and just being there. You know what I mean? Like they kind of are interested and I'm kind of like out of place and they kind of want to know about me and I have fun with them. You know, I sit in the grass, I start playing with them. And I think you could probably feel that I just truly love people, you know.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. Bianca, we do need to get an update from you about the lawsuit. What you can talk about, and just because there will be viewers that listeners that just want an update. Just tell us as much as you are allowed to tell us about the lawsuit.
So right now I can say a small part of it. I was sexually assaulted by a director and it's public knowledge, anybody can Google it. But I have an ongoing federal lawsuit against my predator, Kobe Williams, Gary Slukin, for like, you know, he may be getting off it, I'm not sure, and the University of Illinois. And Cure Violence has left on August of 2019, left the university, they severed, but I still work there. I was transferred to another department, but my lawsuit, I know a lot of people, I don't know where they hear it from, a lot of people think it's over and it was like, you know, no findings or I'm like, what? No, we're still in federal court. You know, my attorney is Ed Mullen. I was referred to him by a friend and he's a wonderful man. And this has been ongoing and the pandemic slowed it down. And there's all types of, you know, and I had to ask God, you know, I mean, I know judges and lawyers, they have to go by the law, right? So I get that. But there's so much like unbelievable with that stuff that you can't even make up. I mean, like, it's like, wait, what's happening, you know, with this lawsuit that I asked my lawyer and I said, but I know that judges have to go by the law, but do they know these tactics that people, you know, well, he's like, yeah, they know, like everyone knows the, you know, like how to make the victim look like the big liar 101, you know? So other victims did come forward, some that had happened to before me, and there's even some that happened after me. And yeah, and it's like really sad. And I wish that there's more I can say about it. And one day I will. I'm, you know, like I want to be the voice to help women. Because I don't want anyone to suffer in silence. I did suffer in silence for some time before I came forward because I knew if I said something, I'd lose my job. And I loved my job and I loved helping people. And I had came so far that I thought, well, you know, but then the bullying of this person and, you know, really, it was unbearable. I drive home crying. And then I finally was like, you know, I came clean with a couple of people. They were like, you have to, you know, it's up to you, but you have to be vocal about this. And I did. And I kind of felt like I jumped off the Sears Tower because I was like, there's no turning back. And I don't know what's going to happen. I might lose my job. I don't know, you know, there's going to be a lot of retaliation, which there has been, and there still is. And, you know, but here's the thing. It's not now, the lawsuit was filed October 2018. Okay. And we're still in federal court. So it's not over. Right. But now these years later, I'm still like, they try to weaken me. I get weak, but they'll never break me. They'll never break me. And it's not about me anymore. It's about maybe one of your grandchildren or children that may want to go to the University of Illinois. And I want to make sure that they're not going to be, or my grandchildren, you know, they're not going to be sexually abused and swept under a rug, you know, because people want to protect their own reputations. Right. So I get calls from like, you know, because I'm vocal about being against that. Right. And I get calls through Facebook and Instagram or things of women who will say, I was sexually assaulted by blah, blah, and at my work or whatever. And they'll ask for my advice. I'm like, well, I can't tell you what to do, but I'm here to talk with you, you know, and I could we could share our experiences. And I just want you to know, you know, like we have to come together so this stops. This can't go on. It's been going on for too long. And I got to be honest with you guys, working at the University of Illinois made me feel really good. Like, who would have thought that, right? After all those years of my life. And even though horrible things happened to me in my past life, that sideswiped me. I never would have believed that in mainstream corporate America, you know, that this could happen to me in an office, right? And it was like, oh God, you know? And then I was like, okay, well, worse things happened to me in my past. And then I was trying to just like, and then I was like, wait, no, like this was affecting me so badly because this isn't supposed to happen now. I didn't, you know what I mean? I did nothing to deserve this. And then the retaliation from multiple entities, you know, it's just been really hard. But like I said, for me, like, you know, when it's over, if I feel like we will win because we have overwhelming evidence. It's not just only me. There's other women, even before and after me. And, you know, I know that at some point there will be a settlement, you know. I don't care about the settlement, honestly. I care about exposing the truth. I want the truth to come out. And when and if there's a settlement, that money I'm going to put back into the community. I am going to open a not-for-profit organization in marginalized communities for young mothers with children. If they want to take vocational classes, some kind of a trade, learn a skill set, I will get them a computer, pay with that money, my organization that I'm going to have, and pay for the classes, then help with job readiness. And like, I'll have a whole crew working, you know what I mean? This is my vision, right? And that way, then they will, and I wrote a paper on it at Northeastern. So maybe that like inspired me. I love NEIU, but anyway, but that's what I will do with the money. You know, I'm not going to be like, oh, yay, I'm going to sail off in the sunset, you know, on a yacht in, you know, Puerto Rico or something. No, I'm going to put that money right back into the community because I feel like I can show people better than I can tell you on how to be honorable, have integrity, and truly care about the community.
Mm-hmm. Can you share with us how many continuances there were? Because that's 4 years. Maybe during COVID, you know.
Well, the COVID was like, yeah. And then I went on to Zoom, but there were a lot of continuances. And I got to tell you, all I can say, they weren't on my end, you know, so, or my lawyer's end, and he is co-counsel also. A lot of delaying, missed deadlines of discovery, you know, ridiculous things they wanted. My lawyer's already subpoenaed all that stuff. And I said, I'll freely give you my phone records, but the lawyer was like, no, we have to subpoena them, fine, do whatever you got to do. So I can't speak, I don't want to defamation of character or anybody, so I can't speak on anyone else's behalf, but I can tell you that me and my attorneys in my laws on my end, we have not missed any deadlines. We complied with every subpoena of request for anything for discovery. We have been at every court date, whether I'm there or not, my attorney is. And they get continued because there's no one else is at court. And the judge is like, okay, this is like, I don't know really what's going on, but it's like, I don't know. If I were a judge, I'd be like, wait, I don't know. If I had, I know this is civil, nobody's going to go to jail, but as a former criminal, if I didn't go to court, they came after me. So I'm boggled. So there's been a lot of continuances. And if anyone wants to read what's going on, it's just Google Bianca versus the University of Illinois et al., which means and others, and listed in it is the University of Illinois. They were the fiscal agent for Cure Violence, and Ricardo Kobe Williams, Gary Slutkin, and Cure Violence, and the UIC. And UIC for, I mean, like they knew about this behavior while I was in prison. Before I ever even knew I would change my life around, this same person abused other women, and those women were fired. And so I feel like that's kind of not okay with me, So yeah, there's been a lot of continuances, and again, not on our part, so.
So does this have anything to do with the CeaseFire being changed into Cure Violence instead? Do you know why there was a name change for the organization?
I'm really not sure. I mean, it started out as the Chicago Project for Violence Prevention early on. Then they named it CeaseFire. That was a household name. Actually, it still kind of is. And I don't really know why they changed. I mean, I was working there, but then when they changed it to Cure Violence, I don't know who made the decision or what that conversation was. I can only speculate that as they're treating violence as an infectious disease, maybe that's why Cure Violence,
Mm-hmm.
And now they're called Cure Violence Global. So now, and they are not in Illinois that I know of, or Chicago. They do have a small office in downtown somewhere. I don't know where. I'm not in touch with any of them. I haven't talked to any of them, and nor do I have any interest to talk with any of them. But I know that they do work in other states, and so.
Is it is Cure Violence a 501c3, or is it just a project out of UIC?
No, so no, it's okay. When it was at UIC, they were under UIC's 501c3, okay, and but they were so like when we would get in the communities, or like in I'd say even in Rogers Park, uptown, West Side, whatever, and I'd be getting donations or something for an event, maybe, or a store would donate cases of water or whatever, so they'd want a letter like this, and so the letter would be UIC 501c3. So UIC was the fiscal agent, and at the time, during all their whole time at UIC, they were always saying they were an NGO, non-governmental organization. And now I don't know, I'm no expert, but I'm looking at it like, so non-governmental organization, but you're getting government funding. Okay, I don't really know about that, but hey, God bless you all, So, but now they definitely are. They are as far as I know, because I looked, they are a 501c3 under the name of Cure Violence Global.
And before, when we heard about the CeaseFire, we always thought that it was Theo Hardeman that created it. But when I go onto the website now, there's no mention of Theo Hardeman. So maybe you could clarify for us.
Yeah.
What is Theo Hardeman's role?
Well, Yeah, so the history that I know, I mean, the history we were always told and what we learned being employees for CeaseFire. I started when it was Chicago Project of Violence Prevention and then CeaseFire and Cure Violence, that it was Dr. Gary Slutkin that, developed this model in the 90s and then, implemented it into an organization. And I guess by him being an epidemiologist, which I don't know his whole history and kind of overwhelms me to even think of those people. But anyway, after what they put me through. But anyway, they aligned with UIC and Theo Hardiman, he's got his own organization now. Okay. So Theo Hardiman has a 501c3 called the Interrupters. And according to what we've all been told and what I learned during the time working there, that in the early on, even before I worked there, they were all the street people working were outreach workers. And Theo coined the term violence interrupter. Okay. And so, so his organization is called the Violence Interrupters, or the Interrupters, something, I'm not even sure. But I do talk to Theo every now and then. And my aunt's always like calling me. I just seen Theo on the news, I'm like, okay. But so I guess Theo's, doing okay. I have nothing bad to say about Theo. But I think that Theo early on was the executive director because initially they were just in Chicago and they had their first site was CeaseFire West on Chicago Avenue in St. Louis was their very first site. So, and then it, spread more into as they eventually, many years later, got government funding, through the state and foundation money, wherever they get their money from. But anyway, so during the time that I feel like Theo, I was, I used to, even though I was working in Rogers Park, there'd be times, like every year you have to go to Springfield to advocate for funding, right? And I was literally just an outreach worker, right? So, but Theo would go down there with other, executives, from the organization to advocate in the public safety hearings. And then he couldn't make it one time. And I had already been really hit the ground running and out there and everything. And Theo was like, Bianca, I need you to, I think you can, you're only going to have 10 minutes, but, and this is way back when Arroyos was the chair of the public safety committee. Anyway, and so then he's trusted me, and the outreach worker from, uptown in Rogers Park. Right. So I felt I tell them that's one of my greatest moments. I wore this wonderful suit and I had my kind of looked like a briefcase. I wanted to pretend it was. And when they called me up, I sat down with my nice suit on and they got that little mic. And I know you got to push the green to talk and off. And so, but before I said anything, I go, I moved the mic, even though I didn't really have to move the mic, but I did because I saw that in a movie or something. And I moved it so I can be like, thank you, members of Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and that was so I was like, oh my God, I just did that. It was so cool to me, and then over the years, I made a million more trips there. I haven't since COVID though, but I know right before COVID, Nellie Vesquez Rowland, the founder and president of A Safe Haven Foundation, asked me to come to a special joint Senate committee at the Bolandic building downtown and then one in Springfield. And during a time when Big Pharma was trying to pass a law that once you get out of prison, if you have any history of drug addiction or drugs, that the minute, even if you, say you did 10 years, 5 years, you're very clean, right? But the minute you get out, they wanted a law that you have to go on methadone or Suboxone. And I was like, what? How ridiculous is that to re-addict somebody to opiates, right? So their claim was they wanted to do this to stop the deaths of opiate overdoses, right? and that you can't overdose while on methadone or Suboxone. Well, I brought like my medical records. Like I was on methadone, double dosing, and Suboxone and heroin and pills, overdosing over 100 times, you know? So that law did not get passed, thankfully. And I do not take any kind of drugs, and I've been clean and sober. On May 8th will be 12 years. So I believe in recovery, and, you know, so anyway, but yeah, so Tio is, you know, he's still very vocal, and, you know, I talk to him maybe every 6 months or something, just to check in. He'll check in with me, or I'll check in with him, you know, but the rest of the crew, no, no, I don't know what they do, and I don't want to know. And one time I was at Cook County Hospital, Strozier, and I was in the line waiting to get a pass to go to the trauma unit. And I looked to the right, and there was Kobe Williams. And I thought, and I was so shocked, you know, and I was just like, and I looked at him and I go, oh my God, it's you, you know, and I didn't say anything else, you know, and he just stood there staring at me. And I thought, huh, whatever, you know, I just walked up, got my little trauma thing, went to the trauma unit to visit the individual that was, you know, there. So that's the last time I saw the man.
Well, same kind of work, and same haunts for the work. So that's that happens. However, let's talk just a little bit about your work for anti-terrorism. Could you describe a little bit about that?
So I've been invited, I've been to the Middle East, and I have worked on, not like, I don't want to make anyone think that like I'm like on the front line of fighting ISIS or something, you know, the Taliban or something, but I was invited to work in the Middle East on programs, building up a program to deter the false propaganda that would entice somebody to join a terrorist group without quite understanding or realizing that they're joining a terrorist group. And yeah, it's very fulfilling work. I felt the first time I went, I felt I was in Abu Dhabi, and it was at the Royal Palace, you know, and it was like I don't know. I can tell you that day I was like, oh wow, after that flight. And that's how I was like, when you go around the room, they're like, can everyone, there's like 15 of us, handpicked from around the world. And I was like, why would they want me? You know what I mean? And come to find out, it's because, you know, me building programs and implementing programs, right? And having an understanding, you know, violence is violence, however, whatever, you know? So, I'm going around, I was the last one. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? Who am I? You know, like you were hearing like London intelligence, FBI, CIA, you know, the Netherlands intelligence, president of Kosovo, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, like, what do I have, you know? And like, am I going to say I'm Jenny from the block, Chicago, you know? So I don't know. I was like, I don't get speechless or nervous, but I was. And I thought, you know what, just be yourself. And when it got to me, I'm like, my name is Angalia Bianca. Everyone calls me Bianca. I work in Chicago extensively for violence prevention and implementing programs in Chicago and throughout the country, and in several other countries. And then it was like, fine. And we were like kind of locked in this room. I mean, we got to go back to the hotel and then come back for a week working on it. There was like professional people with the writing, and we're chopping it up, brainstorming, and it was great. And then I also did some in, well, there are a lot of other places in the Middle East, but then also in Trinidad. And I met there with, this was when Abu Bakr was still alive. And I flew to Trinidad to talk with the American embassy there, because they're in Trinidad, and there's like 3 main villages, right? That each have their own mosque, their own community. And one of the villages was said to be in the direct control, under the direct control of Abu Bakr. And not that they were bringing terrorism to Trinidad, but they were recruiting people from Trinidad, you know, And so I did some work with that, with our State Department, that our ambassador in Trinidad. And yeah, that was when Abu Bakr was still alive. So, and that was some years ago. But, and then the pandemic, and, it's crazy. Like, yeah, I did some anti-terrorism work in Sweden. Yeah, it was quite a few places. So.
Yeah, we kind of could see a connection, but I don't know if it's the right connection or not, because what you're trying to do is interrupt violence, and what the propaganda wants to do is stir up violence. So, so it's your methods against their methods to try to cancel their methods out. So ways to.
Yeah. Well, I also, so the president of Kosovo was at this, I think it was in 2017 or 18, in Abu Dhabi. And so, we spent a whole week together, right? So we're all like, like cool with it, everyone's like, we're working, we're making stuff happen, and, writing out programs. And then the president of Kosovo had with him a former ISIS fighter. And so this particular man, who then I totally bonded with, we're friends to this day, and he joined the terrorist group under the false propaganda, believing that that was what he was supposed to do. You know what I mean? For his religion, for his country. And once he got there, because when you join ISIS, a lot of people don't know this, they put you on some, desert compound that you can't get off of for some years until they brainwash you and can really trust you, right? Well, this one man, whose name I'm not going to say, but he realized it really early on, and somehow he gained some trust within these where he was on this camp, and he was able to get a hold of a burner cell phone, and he called his mother, and who now everyone already back home knew what happened to him, like that he went off to fight this whatever war or whatever, not really a war, but and when he heard his mother's voice, this is what he told me out of his own mouth. When he heard his mother's voice, he could only talk for a minute, but he had tears in his eyes. His mother was crying, and he had to hang up. He just said, "I love you, I'm okay," and hung up. And he said right then and there, he knew he had to get out of there. And so he told me that he did escape from Syria and got back to Kosovo. And he said, "I would rather spend life in prison in my own country than have blood on my hands staying here." So at this point, he had not killed anyone. He had not blown up anything. He escaped before that. And he's very vocal now in trying to stop the false propaganda, right? But anyway, so what happened is, because like this could go into a long story, I'll try to make this short, but he, it's against a lot of terrorist group, right? So like there was no killing or blowing up, but at some point he had to go to prison, right? Even though he was trying to do some good, he still had to go to prison. So now I know he's in prison. This is like he was out on bond, but he can only travel with the president of the country, and under he doesn't freely have a passport, So, but anyway, so about a year goes by, and I get a call from the president of Kosovo saying to me, "Bianca, so-and-so is in prison now, and we have allowed him, we're going to allow him to have communication with 3 people. And you're one of the 3 people he asked for: his mother, his brother, and Bianca. So are you willing to take calls from him?" And I said, "Well, is this legal? And they're like, "Yeah, because he has an authorized phone he could use, and you could text and stuff." And I was like, "Okay, can I?" I was kind of freaked out. I'm not kidding, because I said, "Well, I'll write him." And I said, "But before I write him, please understand that I travel internationally, and I don't want to be put on a red flag that I'm communicating with a convicted terrorist in Kosovo, right? So they were like, no. So I got that cleared. I called our State Department, this man in DC, and I had to really make sure that this was not that, so that everything was approved. And I kept in touch with him. And there's been times when I've actually been giving presentations. One time at the University of Illinois for Professor Strickland for his social work class. And I was getting a call from the man in Kosovo. And I was like, and then I looked at the professor and I go, Kosovo, because he already did the story. And then he goes, no, everyone just stop. Go ahead and answer it. So I answered it. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And then we hang up. And then the professor said, okay, now tell my students, like, this is how far your work reaches. Tell your students who you were just talking to. So everyone was like, oh my God, Anyway, the man did get out of prison. And he didn't get a real long sentence, because when he returned to his country, he didn't go home to his mother. He went directly to the officials, and turned himself in. So I think he got like 4 years or something. And then we kept in touch the whole time. I would send him like an uplifting card or something, keep your head up, things will get better, some kind of something positive. And he would handwrite me, and then he was able to eventually email me, and I would email. And now we communicate, and he wants to open his own not-for-profit in Kosovo, which, I told him, if you need me, like, tell that president to pay my airfare and I'll be there, so, but anyway, yeah. So, and also domestic violence, like domestic violence is a huge thing too, all over here and around the world. And I touch on that as well. So I always say violence is violence is violence is violence, right? And we're trying to stop that flow regardless of the type, although my primary focus is on gun violence.
There's so much that we wanted to discuss with you.
Yeah, it's so much. It's a lot to absorb. I'm sorry if I'm talking a lot, but I just don't even.
Very useful. Yes. Let's do a community assessment with you, and maybe have you back some other time, because there is so much.
Yeah, for sure. Because we would be here all day. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. WZRD Chicago, being a nonprofit radio station, must be responsible to the community we serve. WZRD is mandated to file quarterly issues with the FCC on non-entertainment community-focused programming, and we like to assess the community for these quarterly issues topics with 3 questions. First, what is most important to you?
The most important thing to me in relation to the community is that the community gets the resources. So there are a lot of resources, but the community members may not even know about the resources unless you happen to walk by and tell them about it or know of a situation. So the most important thing to me is marginalized communities, or community, even, like communities that members that need help, whether it's, rental assistance or housing, homelessness, all these, topics. That's the most important thing to me. And I want to do whatever I can with so many, hundreds and hundreds of others that want to be a part of the solution. I was once a part of the problem. Now I'm a part of the solution. So it's very important to me that we break generational poverty, that we address racism, that we address, like women's rights, LGBTQ, all these things. There has to, like, people can live. I don't care who someone prays to, who they sleep with, or who they vote for. Not for real, like, I might want to say who they vote for, but no, I'm just kidding. I really don't. But the thing is that we have to stop judging people, and especially in marginalized communities, when young people look at the few businesses that may be in their community, they're like, what, you know, like they feel they don't even, it doesn't even occur to them that they can open a gas station, they can open a store, they can open a beauty shop, they can open a daycare, you know, and so I feel like that message has to really get out there more. And I know a lot of folks that are giving that message, but it has to be more. And I feel that if we can get that message to young people and that breaks the way they think, then they may be like, okay, that's my goal. I'm going to I'm going to learn. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a license. I'm going to start this. I'm going to apply for grants. You know, like there's help. We'll all help them. You know, people do that. We'll help all of us right here. The three of us right here. We'd help anybody do that, right? So self-sufficiency and breaking generational poverty. And there's like so many issues, like I've started to name them. I could name 29 more, but you know, we all know what they are. I just want people to, you know, empower young people in the community and not throw anybody away. You know, I don't want anybody to be invisible. I want everyone to be seen. I want everyone to have a voice. I want everyone to know that they're important, that what they think matters, who they are matters. I want them to know that, you know, there's so much corruption in the world, right? But we're not all corrupt, right? So, you know, I want to be like, don't judge the many by the few, but the few have to be held accountable, right? So, yeah, the community is very important to me, very, very important.
Since you mentioned that you would love that people get the resources, actually, we got a couple of inquiries about helping pay for rent. Do you have anything that you could?
I do, yes,
yes,
I
please.
do. Do you want me to email it to you?
Yes, please. Yes, we'll
Okay.
share it around. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, Acclivus has a program called Access to Justice. And actually, you could just go on their website, acclivusinc.org, and then programs, and then you'll see you'll see hospital, and then underneath it'll be like A2J, Access to Justice. And it's a grant where there's two parts to it, where they help people that were impacted by the pandemic, like rental or homeowners, landlords, you know, that don't want to evict their people but need help. And then there's another part to it to remove barriers, right? So to help you, like if you've been out of jail, like thankfully my criminal record doesn't hinder me, because I don't know why, but thankfully it doesn't, but it does the majority of people. So Acclivus has a program to help you expunge or seal your criminal record after so many years of being out of jail. And they work along with the Cabrini Green Law Clinic, West Side Justice Authority or Center, whatever it's called. So they do a lot. Acclivus has a lot of programs. The one thing I want to kind of throw out here also is that a lot of the, like CeaseFire was not a service provider, okay? We were there to bring resources one-on-one and interrupt the violence to stop it, right? But Acclivus is kind of wraparound services. They are a service provider because they hold workshops for youth and job fairs, and, you know, then they've got the hospital response, they've got the access to justice, and they were given money to fund sub-grantees. So they have a whole list of sub-grantees that they are they were given the money to allocate this out to smaller community organizations that could make change in the communities. So I love Acclivus. They're great. But anyway, yeah, I will email you a flyer, and Bill, you as well. And if you want to post it or circulate it, feel free to. There are 3 numbers on there, specifically for rental assistance and eviction, prevention, and all types of stuff. And someone always gets back to you guys. And so I will, as soon as we're done, I will email to both of you.
Thank you so much. It seems like the job, the employment issues and the rental assistance are the big ones. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're doing a lot with connecting people with jobs, and mock interviews and with younger, like people, youth, like, 16, 17. And, and even they, like, it was last week I was at their Southside office and I walked in, and there was this young, yeah, I don't know, I think he was like 22 or 23. And I somehow was drawn to him. He worked there. He was like he's an outreach worker, right? And so I was like, I don't know you, do I? And he was like, no. And I go, well, my name is, and what is your name? And I go, okay, I know. I'm just really, I love to, how old are you? And I go, no, I'm probably not supposed to ask this, but I'm just like a community member. I don't really work here. And he was like, no, I'm 22. And I was like, wow. I'm like, so tell me, because I'm inspired by young people, especially your age, right, that are doing something so important, right? And he was like, well, I used to be a participant of this program, and I started realizing that the route I was going was wrong, like not going to end well, right? And then now I work here, and I'm like, that's a wonderful picture, because another 22-year-old involved in high risk street activity who knows this 22-year-old, right, is going to be like, wow, you did it. I definitely can. I mean, I know we all can inspire like that, but the same age or the same, so that was last week, and I'm still impressed about that, so yeah. So Acclivus does a lot. And, but I also have resources. Reach out to me, just email me if somebody asks you for something. 'Cause like random things that I like know, but where there's help. Right. So, but yeah.
That's great. We really appreciate that. So there's two more questions with the community assessment. What long-term problem must we address?
The long-term problem would be to, as far as the tax base, the taxpayers' money, the long-term problem needs to be accountable of where this money is going and what is the outcome of what it's doing for the good, or, assessing this, right? The long term, because, everybody's got something to say about Chicago. I think it's the greatest city on the planet, and I would never leave here. And I know we have our problems, but other people do as well, right? But for us, it has to be accountability. We've got to get to a place where each community and, community leaders and legislators have a long-term plan of accountability where this tax money is going and what is the outcome. It's as simple as that, because otherwise we're so in the deficit, that like, no, we have to give money to the right people who have the right, like, wonderful results, right? So that's what I would say.
What about the problem that must be addressed now?
The problem that must be addressed now would be, so I don't want to always say about violence, but also I think like, like addiction. Okay, what should be addressed now should be lower level felonies that where really you're only shoplifting because you're a drug addict or you're prostituting or you got caught with a bag of dope. Now, all those things, if you've got a record, like we will send you to the penitentiary, right? But like, so let's stop doing that. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to save everybody if you offer them services, but you'll save a whole lot of them, right? And so in the end, that's going to help the tax base. And I feel like, in my opinion, I don't know, did somebody tell somebody that, hey, prison's big business, or like homicide in Chicago's big business? Come on, get up on the gravy train, like, no, I don't like that. I'm so against that. I don't want it to be big business where people are like, oh, I can make money off the backs of people suffering, in marginalized communities. I don't like that. So what we need to address right now is sentencing laws, as far as lower, and I'm talking lower level. I mean, violent crimes, I got nothing to say, that you're on your own, I don't want a person that is a menace to the public safety on the street any more than anyone else does. I'm not a bleeding heart, or I'm like, oh, no, like 99 people tried to work with you. You still did this. I don't know. I love you still, but you know, and then the ones we don't know. So, I mean, you know, I'm not judging anyone, but you made your bed. But I feel that, you know, I'm sorry. There are a lot of people going to prison that otherwise could have been helped through a program long-term, maybe like sentence them to a year inside safe haven, you know, so.
Well, Angalia Bianca, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that our listeners will read in deep how I survived gangs, heroin, and prison to become a Chicago violence interrupter. And so they could learn more about what you've done and what you're doing.
Thank you. And it's in bookstores, but I'm just going to tell you, it's cheapest on Amazon. And if you can learn more on my website, angaliabianca.com. Also, if you happen to get the Audible or the Kindle, you won't get the cool pictures. And if you can email me through my website, and I am more than happy to, if you tell me I listened to the Audible, I didn't get the pictures, I will email you the photo file for free, you know, so anyway, yeah, so, but go to Amazon. Sorry to my publisher, but I want to save people money, you know.
Yes, okay. So yeah, get the book on Amazon and read it. It's a great book. And thank you so much, Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, for also joining in with us on this interview today.
Thank you both. It's been great.
Thank you. It was good seeing you again, Bill, and thank you so much for having me on your show. This is through Northeastern, this show, right?
Yes, we're
yeah.
So it's so great to have an alumna on our show.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And this will be is recorded on Zoom, and it will be shared on the Wizard channels page, 88.3 FM. We'll send you the link.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'll get the flyer for resources for rental assistance to you.
Yes. And
okay.
And for jobs as well, if you have that.
Yeah. And post it and share it like wherever you want, you know. So, all right. Thank you, you guys. Sure. I'm really honored to have been here. And thank you to all your listeners. And go out and be kind to somebody and make a difference.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.